Welcome, one and all. I hope you're all doing well on this Sunday morning. We're here bright and early, thanks to Dylan, but it'd be like that. I was gonna be up anyway, so it's it is what it is. But
I have to be up. Everybody else has to be up.
I feel that. You know what? I
That's
fuck
what's
with
up,
the
bro.
energy. I fuck with the energy. And also, it's also kind of hype that we're doing more casts than just award shows. So welcome one and all back to the Anime Sovereigns podcast. This is episode number 27. And our topic for today is great shows or good shows that are a little bit difficult to recommend. And there are quite a few shows that really fit the bill. And it also really sucks sometimes because I think pretty much all the shows that we're going to talk about today are like quite standout in multiple ways in a lot of cases. And then someone's like, oh, I want to get into anime. What should I watch? And it's like, I can't tell you to watch this. Not yet, at least. Like sometimes it takes a while of watching things and then eventually we can get there. But off rip, I've definitely in my mind been like, man, I really wish that I could tell you to watch this, but I can't in good faith. I can't do it right now.
Yeah, it's like a pretty deep rooted issue. Issue is probably the wrong word. Probably just barrier to entry for anime. Because over the years anime has garnered a reputation of being a very strange medium compared to what people are typically used to, just live TV, movies, books, whatever. And that's just on the virtue that more things get greenlit in anime, and thus there's a lot more shows that have the potential to have questionable substance.
Anime is weird.
Yeah. And it's that type of sentiment, Bobby. That a lot of anime fans back in the day, and even still in present day to some degree, they feel uncomfortable sharing the fact that they like to watch anime, openly. And that's because people think oh, you watch anime, that's, and they immediately think of the weird shit or something, things that are needlessly fan servicey, or things that have shallow writing, or things that may or may not be problematic for one reason or another. So,
and oh boy, do I know about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anime has had an unfavorable impression for a lot of people, just because the quantity of these shows is pretty high. I'm talking about the low quality shit, not what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Because today we're talking about great shows that we would like to recommend to more people, but because of a lot of caveats that need explaining, we can't do that in good faith, without explaining these things.
Yeah, before we hop into each individual show, I did have this general thing that I wanted to present. I feel like you guys I feel like you guys might agree with me with this. I feel like this dynamic of having a really, really good show that you can't necessarily go out to your friend who hasn't seen many shows and say hey, you should watch this right now. I feel like this contributes to the sentiment people have about people being elitist and stuff like that, or gatekeepy in a way. And in some case, I feel like it's a misconception in a lot of cases. Yes, there are people that are elitist, and there are people that do literally gatekeep. I don't know why you'd want to gatekeep something if it's good. I don't really get that, but it sometimes I think the nuance behind this isn't the right show for you at this time. We're not saying it's never gonna be right for you or something you'll never be able to enjoy, but I feel like that kind of contributes to that rhetoric. Because I personally, I've seen this a lot. And of course, I have to bring this up. I have to bring up the battle shonen heads, bro. My favorite people. They're always out here arguing about things. And I saw a post that was it was a meme. You ever see the Buzz Lightyear and Woody meme?
Yeah.
What he's like, you don't like
wait,
this?
which
No,
one? You mean under the truck?
Yeah. And so it was he was talking about you don't like any Naruto, you don't like any One Piece, you don't like any Bleach, anything, and Buzz is talking about these shows give me life, and they're like all slice of life shows. They're all like they're all like slice of life shows. He's like, this is how this makes me feel. And then at the end, the Woody guy is just yelling at him, "You're a bot." And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't think I'm like, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I feel like so many people are watching shows or not watching shows to that end, simply because of their peers, like, or how they will be perceived to their peers. And I think this contributes to that in some way. Like it's really ugly. I'm not a fan. I wish it wasn't this way. But there's still like stigma there, and I think it's ugly. I just wanted to bring that up.
All I'll say is, like, there's a reason, like, we did like another podcast about like gateway anime, things that are like very like easy to recommend to people who haven't seen much anime, and like that's because, like, if you present them with like a show that they're not ready for, or a show that doesn't like fit them, like it's going to ruin their impression of the medium of anime. So it's a case by case basis, but like, the things that we're going to be talking about today, it's not like we're trying to like gatekeep them. It's just that, like, if you are not prepared to like watch these shows, or you don't know like the story behind them, the external story behind them, like you might get the wrong impression of this specific show or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that happens. And with that, we're gonna start off with our friend Bobby. He's gonna tell us about this show on the screen, this series.
All right, guys, listen up. This show, literary masterpiece in terms of writing, plot, character development, direction. It's all incredible, but there's many layers as to why this show is so hard for me to recommend to anyone. First of all, the number of Japanese puns in the show. This show is simply undubbable. You cannot translate this to any language outside of Japanese. It's like people have told me, and the density at which people are speaking in the show, it's absolutely absurd. I've had multiple people tell me the subtitles in the show go too fast for them. And I'm like, damn, bro, that's an insane barrier. But it goes further beyond the fact that this show is aggressively Japanese. If you look at the tags for the show, what we have is an ecchi harem. All right.
Actually,
they show like female harem. They show it's like female harem. The show is crazy ecchi. There's so much like just fan service in general. And it's like, okay, it's not one of those ecchi harems, guys. You have to trust. And it's not just ecchi. It's like taboo ecchi. Like we've got everything wrong under the sun in this show. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, despite the fact, so let me explain why it's so egregiously horny. It's because this show takes perspective of the narrator into really high like concern, and like it really, really informs and dictates the way the show is presented to the audience. The main character is a horny high school boy, and so the world is like made to be turbo horny. Like, the way that the story is presented to you is incredibly horny because the main character is a repressed teenager. It's simply this way. And it's like, it's not even just the fact that, oh, big booba everywhere. Unfortunately, it gets way more problematic than that, because some people would be like, oh, that's pretty cool, I love booba. But in this show, there's not just booba. There is, unfortunately, hints of trigger warning, incest, and hints towards pedophilia. And it's not actual pedophilia like pedophilia, but there's fan service of characters who should not be presented like even remotely in any like kind of sexual way. And you know, people give you all the excuses. Oh, this one's a 500-year-old vampire, doesn't count. No, it kind of does, bro, come on. And then there's the, oh, this character is technically a ghost of a child, but they weren't a child. Like, they wouldn't be a child now if they were still alive. And it's like, okay, bro, but like that still doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
Because the depiction of what they're showing is not cool. If I asked anybody what the most famous scene from the Monogatari series is,
we all know what it is, bro.
You already know. It's the main character brushing his little sister's teeth in a way that is way too sensual. And it's like, what kind of person? Like, if I tell someone my favorite show is Monogatari, it's so frequent where they're like, oh, the toothbrush show. And I'm like, bro, this reputation has gone too far. People don't understand that these like snippets of the show are just small problematic entities within a greater picture of something that I think personally is incredibly masterful in its storytelling and like the messages and like the themes and the direction and the animation. It's all incredible. The execution is great. The story is great. I love almost everything about this show. It's just those small snippets that have basically no bearing on the plot whatsoever just happen to exist, and it's really unfortunate that those things are there to gatekeep the show from people that I don't want to give the wrong impression towards.
That doesn't even go into like the Monogatari series is like 13 entries or something.
Yep,
and
that's
it's also it's long.
Yeah,
and you won't know which one to begin with at all. Like you start with Bake and then Nisei, but that's just what we know that.
Yeah,
you
wanna
no
talk
way
about that,
anyone
Bobby? Because like I've been told there's like two main orders that people watch in, and they're like different for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. That's already confusing for people. It's like, why is there two orders I could watch it in?
So there's a lot of Monogatari series, right? There's Bakemonogatari, Nisa Monogatari, Monogatari second season, Nika Monogatari Black. There's Suki Monogatari. There's like some, there's a million, right? Kizu Monogatari, all of those. Owari Monogatari, Owari 2. Point is, like, there are two primary orders that you can watch the series in, and there's like chronological order because the story is not. It doesn't all take place in order of the events that occur in the story. It's not a linear story. They'll like occasionally hop back and forth between like the point in the timeline that they're in, which I think is perfectly valid for what they're trying to do. But it gets really hazy because of specifically the movie. So the movie is a prequel. Kizu Monogatari is like a movie trilogy, and it's a prequel to the first story of Bakemonogatari. But if you ask the light novel author, he says Kizu Monogatari is valid to watch before or after Bakemonogatari. So it's, in a way, a really good introduction because it's chronologically the first thing that happens. And the way the story starts, they just kind of throw you in to like the cesspool of their world and what's going on. But alternatively, you could just watch it in the broadcast order. So, like, the light novel order would technically start with Bakemonogatari, but the chronological order would start with Kizu, and those are both valid. The problem with the chronological order is once you get deeper in, you're starting to, like, just kind of move random arcs or episodes, like, just outside of their respective seasons. And I don't really think it works that way. But I would say you just should read it or experience it, like watch the anime in the broadcast order. But I would personally recommend Kizu Monogatari to be the first one. But outside of that, you just have to like Google a list because I'm not going to list you every single title of every single iteration of Monogatari that exists. But just know that it is like a 100-episode venture.
Yeah, I have two images that I will show you in regards to this, guys. One of them's a little dated because this one was June 2015. But if you were to present someone something like this, right? If you were to present someone something like this would naturally be intimidating to someone who isn't super already like immersed into the medium, right? Like they're gonna look at this and be like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? this is there's no way you're gonna get me to watch all of this. Like, it just looks intimidating, right? Now there are some better presentations of stuff like this. Like I think this image is a little bit better. Let me pull this one out real quick. Yeah, like this one's a lot nicer, right? This one's not nearly as intimidating, but like this is still a lot, right? Like even if you're someone who's not intimidated by, right? Look how many episodes. The 3 movies, like you're seeing 15 episodes, 3 movies, 11 episodes, 4 episodes. Like this is just a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's a massive
I mean,
undertaking.
second season half and splicing in Hana Monogatari.
It says, yo, you're gonna start off with Monogatari series second season in the second season, and then halfway through you're gonna stop that and go to Hana Monogatari.
Which is really ironically actually a part of second season, but it was a delayed section of second season. For all intents and purposes.
Has 5 entries. This is like basically Attack on Titan like level.
Oh my god, bro. Not a.
It's just dumb,
bro.
Just fucking just have a reasonable order.
I think this order is supposed to be the light novel content in order. Actually,
Okay.
That's what I believe this to be. But yeah, chronological order doesn't really make sense. I think it kind of takes away from the artistic vision. I think the light novel order is reasonable, but I think to just make it the easiest for yourself while still maintaining like the artistic integrity, start with Kizu Monogatari and then just watch the anime order.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree with that because like me, Bobby, Dylan have watched Monogatari like all the way through. And it's interesting because like you think a lot, like depending on who you ask, like they'll like prefer or like recommend a different order. Because like I am of like the opinion that like you could watch it in broadcast order and splice in like Kizu kind of like wherever you want, but probably like the best place to put it is either before or after Bake, like Bobby said. But you know, like it, like broadcast order like is like, you know, the artist's intention. It's supposed to like jump around and it's supposed to show you things in a certain order because like, you know, that's the way it wants to do its storytelling, and that's like where it places like important bits, because like not spoiling like what exactly happens like between like first season and second season, but like first season is like pretty much like, you know, laying the foundation for like characters to really like evolve and grow over the course of the second season. And like the effect that creates is like it's really surreal. There's really like no other way to like describe it, because like, man, the series is like so complicated and so layered in a way that like really nothing else is. And you know, all that like gets exemplified in like the final season as well. So it's like I would say this is probably like an acceptable order, like what's on screen. Maybe you can watch Hana Monogatari like after second season. I don't know. Like I think that's also acceptable, but I get why it's like in the middle. But yeah, like I mean, this is all to say that like this contributes to why people like have not chosen to like dive into the series. It's because they see this and they're like, yeah, I don't think it's worth it.
There's so many barriers. There's so many barriers. It's just the show has too many puns. It's just it won't translate well. There's like questionable like content being shown randomly that is not relevant but is still there. And the order in which you have to watch is unfortunately a little bit of a mess to anyone who doesn't know what they're getting themselves into.
Where do I start?
feel like everything should be watched in broadcast order, because like just logically, like if you're watching a show as it's going, but for some reason we have these creators that just...
So the reason Kizu Monogatari is such a mess in terms of like the reason why you need to shift that movie got delayed like 5 times because they were not satisfied with the final product multiple times.
Which one is that?
Kizu Monogatari.
It's a series of 3 movies that are like an hour.
Yeah, it's a trilogy. I think they're actually re-releasing it as like a singular entity, like this year.
I mean, you just have to spell the whole thing.
It's one word. It's one word.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Monogatari. Yeah.
Why does it not show?
Yeah.
Wait, what is the search engine, bro? Like, why did this show up?
Bro, you know what we want.
This is your king, Anylist. This is your king.
What else could I be looking for if I type in Kizumono, bro? Like, what?
I think this is a cool entry point because you go in blind. It's like, yo, this is fucking crazy.
It's actually, you know, it's interesting enough that AniList entries actually like they speak on this. Like the fact that they have to do this like tells you
I didn't
something,
know that.
right?
I didn't know that.
Because like if we go back to Bake, right? It says first season, part 1 of 6, right? And then
Yeah, but like they also like put the relations in chronological order because like Kizu is like the starting point and like there's no prequel here.
Yeah.
And so like if you like go down the line, it'll tell you, okay, watch movie 2, movie 3, and then go to Bake.
Yep.
But they'll still like call Bake the first part. So it's like,
yeah,
which is reasonable. Like it's a prequel, you know, I call it a prequel for a reason, right? Like it's supposed to detail what happens before, you know, which is fine.
Yeah.
I do think that it can get a little confusing for a first time viewer to just be thrown into Bakemonogatari and be forced to be like, hey, what's going on? I don't get it. Because they quite literally summarize the events of Kizumonogatari in Bakemonogatari within 5 seconds. Like this is not I'm like not joking. It's a very literal like 5 second, like they show you 10 trillion screenshots of something they never made and then they made it later.
Jesus Christ.
I do remember that. I was like, huh?
Oh man. You know, the funny thing about this conversation and using this as a starting point is like this is definitely like this is the show that I haven't watched yet, and I know for a fact that I'm going to really like it a lot, and I just haven't because it's just a lot, right? Like it's just a lot.
It's just dense.
So I just haven't done it yet.
It's dense. There's
It is.
there's a lot
And
of
like
episodes.
this is like one of those shows that I want to set aside time and make sure it has my full undivided attention. Like I feel like it's like the way that I mean it's obviously like one of the more profound shows that we've talked about before, and like I think like the way that it like tells its story and it crafts its narrative is like pretty deep, and there's just a lot, and I don't want to miss anything, you know, like
There's
I
definitely
wanna make sure.
I really have you tried watching it at all, Khalil?
I haven't yet. No.
It's okay. So I'm terrified. I'm terrified of the extent that you'll try to go to watch this show because there's someone I know who is their pace on Monogatari is very slow because direction is incredibly unique. Like there are tons of random slides that are inserted in the show that just detail character monologue or narration, and you're not supposed to read the whole thing. The intention is you get a wall of text that appears for like 1 second, and you're supposed to just encapsulate the feeling based on a few keywords your brain like gets attracted to, like on the screen. So you'll get an entire wall of text that is all coherent thought, but you're not supposed to read it.
Ah.
And I
Bro,
know
that's
someone who's
fucked
like,
up. That's the
I know.
That's annoying.
I know someone who's like, I can't watch it like that. I need to read the whole thing. And then he pauses like every 5 seconds to read all of the spurts of monologue. And I'm like, bro, please just watch it. It's okay. Just watch on vibes, bro. It's okay.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's
I would definitely like recommend like setting aside time to watch the show because like when I watched it like, you know, at the peak of COVID, so I had nothing to do. So I pretty much like watched it like maybe like 6 or so episodes a day, which I think is like a pretty good pace for how dense the show is. But you know, it is a show that requires your undivided attention because I think if you're not paying attention and you're not trying to like digest everything that the show like wants to like deliver to you, you're gonna think it's like hella boring. But you know, conversely, like if you are paying attention and you like are trying to like connect the dots of everything that is being told to you, it is like one of the most unique experiences that anime has to offer. So it's a very like wide spectrum of experiences that people can have with them depending on how much they're dialed in and paying attention. So you definitely want to be on the upper end of that spectrum, ideally.
This is
so
a show that rewards you for paying attention, and it's absolutely a show that rewards you for thinking really deeply about like what they're trying to convey, and especially how they're trying to convey it. It's like a very, very thoughtful like narrative, and I honestly think it's like, in terms of like literary work, I think it's like in my top like 3 of all time of any medium for any story.
That's high praise.
Yeah, and like everything you said is like very not for everyone.
Yeah.
It'd be like that. Yeah. I mean, that's
Some
kind of the
people
point.
they
no?
can't. Yeah, some people can't stomach what this show's got to put out. You know,
Yeah.
it's a little
Yeah,
bit too
it's-
dense. It's a little bit too much. I mean, like, it's yeah, and it's kind of a shame that it's so inaccessible. But I think the fact that it is so packed with intentionality leaves a lot for someone like me to watch the show over and over and over and still love it on every rewatch.
Oh, also,
Mhm.
for some reason, Bakemonogatari is only available in 480p.
Yo.
Day, baby.
Don't worry
Like on
about it.
Crunchyroll, like and stuff.
he,
Like
he said, "Don't worry about it."
Don't worry about it.
Like,
Okay, so okay, actually, hold on. There's something else I need to say.
Okay.
I'm gonna look it up right now because I don't think they fixed it. Another issue with the accessibility of this show, actually, there are 3 OVAs for Bakemonogatari that are necessary content to watch, and they're not on Crunchyroll.
Not on Crunchyroll, bro.
Oh wow, bro.
I
Wait,
almost
what
forgot
ones are
about that. Aniplex is actual Satan. We need to get rid of them. They are in fact and indeed the devil. There's
we found the great evil.
I don't know what people are supposed to do when they're trying to watch the show. You're supposed to watch Bakemonogatari, and then you're supposed to go find the 3 OVAs that are not on streaming services, and then go watch those, because those are, in fact, necessary for the story. But, you know.
That's funny.
It never ends, bro. There's always something else to mention of what makes this series like hard to recommend.
It's, oh my god, it's so brutal.
True.
I wish.
We wish, bro. Like, full disclosure, like the way we came up with this topic was because like Monogatari is getting more content down the line, like been confirmed, like, you know, off season, monster seasons, that was called. Like it will come, and like people are, like all the Monogatari like enthusiasts like came out of the closet after like so many years of thinking that it was over and that we were not getting any more content, and you know, suddenly everybody's like, oh, like now I'm gonna watch the series, and then they run into the wall that is like, what order do I watch it in? Or like, oh my god, I didn't know it was like this type of show, that type of thing. And so like it's definitely like very relevant in discussion nowadays, and we felt the need to shed some light on you know, watching the series if you are interested.
All right, well, let's go to the next show. Are we just going top to bottom in the
or left to right?
I think
I'm fine with whatever.
Top to bottom. Let's do Fate next.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
where to start?
Is this the one that we want to like have on screen?
I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, it
Hey, man, we got
wherever
starts,
you
right?
listen. It's your this is your choice. So whatever you want me to put on screen, you tell me. I'll go. Like
It's kind of hard to start where like all the caveats for Fate comes in, right?
Okay.
I think if you're like an outsider looking in, you're gonna look at all these series, these side series with all these ridiculous titles. You're gonna get confused. You're gonna cry, and you're just not gonna watch the series at all. No, like seriously though, like there's Grand Order, there's Apocrypha, there's I think Strange Fate or something like that, and then there's like Ilia, and there's like so many side series at this point that it just kind of overwhelms and really just makes it really hard to like enter the series. I feel like, you know, and I don't think it's that hard. You know, if you are only interested in the main content, there's really only 4 series you kind of have to watch, which is all the routes from like Fate Stay Night, which would be Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, and then like Heaven's Feel, and then there's also the prequel for like Fate Zero. But there's also like a problem with like trying to view the main series itself, like Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, and Heaven's Feel, in that like the initial first route, Fate, there's no real good adaptation of it. You got the Dean version, which was like an amalgamation, really, of all three routes into a singular series, and it was just really poorly done. From I feel like they butchered the writing, from like the plot to the characters to, you know, the animation wasn't great because it is Studio Dean, and on top of that, this is an anime from like basically 20 years ago at this point. So I feel like trying to get somebody into this series for a series that's like 20 years old at this point is kind of hard.
Dean gatekeeping is so facts, bro. It's like
Such is the nature of visual novel adaptations in the early
Yeah.
2000s.
It's like the animation thing's especially true, right? Because like Fate is renowned as like a UFO table show that looks incredible, and the
Mhm.
Dean one,
Yep.
I've seen it. It do not.
It's not like that.
So like, because you have this problem where like you can't properly view the first route in its intended form, is that like you get arguments about watch order and where to start, kind of like Monogatari. It's not as like serious, but it's like there's like 3 different directions you can go, and almost all of them are not great for somebody just trying to get into the series. I don't think starting with Unlimited Blade Works is good, because it's really building off of some themes and some things they kind of build in Fate route. And then starting with Fate Zero is not great because it's just an entirely different series, or it's like a standalone thing.
A lot of people just watch Fate Zero.
Fate Zero. And the thing with Fate Zero is that like it also spoils a lot of things for like the main show, and like things you're supposed to find out later down the line in the visual novel and like the series itself.
I would attest as a Fate Zero. Like I watched Fate Zero, and I think it hurt my experience with the rest of Fate. I'll be honest.
I think it also like sets up like this really weird undue expectation about what the rest of the series is going to be. Because if you watch Fate Zero first, you're gonna like go into Unlimited Blade Works thinking like, oh hey, it's gonna be a battle royale. We're gonna have like differing perspectives and almost like philosophical debates, right? Because a good chunk of Fate Zero was like just that. But for like the rest of the series, like Fate, Unlimited Blade Works, and like Heaven's Feel, it's mostly from the perspective of one person. And so I think shifting from kind of like an ensemble cast to really one person is going to jar a lot of people and kind of turn them away from the show.
So for me, I watched Fate Zero first, and the reason I watched Fate Zero was because when I was in high school and watching more and more anime, I would just literally go to Google and be like, good anime to watch, basically. And Fate Zero was fucking always there. So I was like, oh, okay. So it was just one of the shows that was always fucking there. So Fate Zero came out in 2011, so this must have been like 2012, 2013 or something. And then I was like, okay, cool. I watched it. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But then I see there's more. I'm like, what the fuck is all this stuff? This seems very different. So I think people just started with Entry Point with a pretty similar story, because anyone who's around our age group, when they're just discovering or watching more anime, literally would just either go to Google or YouTube and type in stuff to watch.
My experience was like pretty similar. Like not how I like discovered it, but how I chose to watch it. Because like I watched like Fate Zero like maybe like a year or two like you like after it aired, and like at that time, Unlimited Blade Works, the TV series, like not the anime film, because like there is a film version of Unlimited Blade Works that people don't talk about. This had yet to air, and so like, oh, I watched Fate Zero. Now let me watch this. And like people like me and Miguel like don't have like the luxury of like, oh, we can't like erase the fact that we watched Fate Zero before we watched any of the other subsequent content from UFO Table. And so like, I mean, obviously like now if you're trying to recommend it, you can say like, oh, you could watch it in this order, but like a lot of people who were like already into Fate back then didn't have that luxury. So yeah, it's like you get a lot of differing opinions with how to watch it, because like I would say like watching Fate Zero first is fine. Bobby would say like it's not so fine, and like that's where a lot of like the complications of recommending it come in, because you'll hear different things from different people. So
the last recommendation is like you just read Fate as a route, but the problem is that visual novel is just not available legally through legal means in America. Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like an overwhelming majority of anime watchers are probably pretty out of touch with what VNs even are.
Yeah.
Just like I don't think they know. Like an overwhelming majority of people that watch anime, especially in current day, are definitely manga readers, if anything, and looking for adaptations from that medium. And you know, that's something different entirely from VNs. And like if you know about it, then it does explain like why there's so many branching paths and why it chooses to tell why these shows choose to tell their stories in the ways that they do. But to the average person, I feel like VNs aren't something that they're necessarily knowledgeable on, let alone like actually interested in and going back and like because like, you know, if you nowadays, I feel like if there's a show that comes out and it is a manga adaptation, you'll get a lot of people that say, you know, if you want more context, if you want more knowledge on it, go read the manga, right? We hear that a lot when people talk about shows. VNs, I feel like if you're talking about an anime and you say, yo, like you gotta go read the visual novels, I feel like there's a lot of people that will just have a severely averse reaction to that notion. Just like they'll just like crumple up into a ball and be like, what the fuck is that? What did you just tell me to do? What did you I don't know what that is. I don't
I'm people.
There's also the problem of like the adaptation complainers, you know, like sometimes they cut things.
Yeah.
And especially for Heaven's Feel, like it's a long route, and they had to cut it down to like 6 hours. So, you know, you're gonna get those people that said it wasn't really well adapted because of those cuts and like changes they've made. So I feel like that's like another barrier.
Do you feel like because I mean I've seen you gush about Heaven's Feel and these do you think like. Do you think there's any show that passes them visually?
Visually?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little unfair. These are movies, so.
Yeah, but I asked what I asked, brother.
It depends on what you value, I think.
It depends on what you value.
You could probably like limit it to like are these like the best action sequences that you've ever seen?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know.
So in terms of like choreography, there's probably stuff better.
Yeah.
In terms of like big blowout explosive stuff, which I feel like is Ufotable's strong suit.
Yeah.
You know, big, bright, pretty colors. I don't think there's anything better.
Yeah, like if you want to talk like a big bombastic fight, I mean, I'd struggle to think anything's better than some of the Heaven's Feel stuff we see in the second and third movie. But if you're going like a different type of fight, it's like, yeah, I mean, if you enjoy that more.
Yeah, if you want like choreography, I think. I haven't seen it, but I would imagine it's like JJK or like that one scene from not Solo, what the fuck? Link Click.
Okay.
You just insulted Link Click. What you mean?
I was like, I'm like thinking about not Japanese anime. I'm like, oh, okay, so Solo Love Link.
Oh my god,
that shit was actually really funny.
Ain't no way, bro.
Oh
It ain't Japanese.
I want to give like full disclosure. Like Fate was another one of this series that I was like, I should probably watch this at some point. And I probably will, but I will say that I personally was gatekept by this shit. I could not like this.
Oh my lord.
That's another one. Yeah, no, like I said, like the side series, like it's just kind of sus.
I just
get the
like,
shit off the screen, bro.
Yeah, I this particular like the crazy part is like I've only seen things from this series in like clips and stuff like that, and every single time I'm like, bro, I'm gonna throw up. Like what's going on here? What's happening? Like is it? I don't know. I was like, yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. And so like that was definitely part like because like I heard about Prisma Ilia like pretty early on into learning about Fate in general, and so I was like, oh, is this even what it is? And then after getting more context, I was like, oh, okay, it's just like some random spin-off series that they decided to, I don't know how relevant it is to the greater scheme of things. I have no idea. But I was like, bro, I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no, like going back on that, like the side series and like all those like the alternate takes, right? If you like take a look at the like Monogatari like watch order stuff, if we go back to that, it's like pretty simple, right? For the most part. If you like look at a Fate watching order chart or like like a guide to getting into Fate, it's almost it's just impossible to look
this
at.
is the Monogatari watch order, bro. He said you haven't seen nothing yet. Let me look at a Fate watch order.
Full disclosure, I watched Fate. I didn't fucking know what the hell's going on most of the time. I was
Like,
like,
you
yo,
feel
what
it's
favorite
cool,
things, yeah.
right?
like I was like, I'm just gonna appreciate some cool ass
The
colors.
hand drawn ones are the funniest.
Oh, you can already see it. We got branching paths right here, bro.
This is not linear, bro. This is not
This is-
even a polygon.
This is choose your own adventure, bro. This is crazy.
Look at this shit.
Jesus
See,
Christ.
Its start is read Fate route.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, like that,
Dude,
and we laugh about this, but like this point of this. So let me open the image.
The watch order starts with
Right.
reading.
So right, that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like this in and of itself, this starting point will turn a lot of people off naturally because
Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. There's a
What?
legend actually. These are color coded.
Oh shit! Oh my god!
Bro.
but
This
Yeah.
guy's an asshole though. He made this intentionally annoying to look at.
I don't even know. Like I don't know. This is
This
some
is
random shit on Reddit. I don't even know if this is like.
Why is there a dashed line in the bottom?
It's optional because it's optional.
Funny.
He recommends it, but it's optional.
Oh, okay, I see. So there's 2 dash lines, and the dash lines are optional.
Yes.
It really
Like
beats
how
it
Visual,
at
novel,
times.
visual
He's
novel only route is the easiest path.
It is.
It's like,
Also
the
the
thing that's
longest
not
path.
accessible at all in the US is the easiest one.
The
Hey, we're
recommended
gonna,
watch
we're
order.
gonna be getting it soon. It's gonna be on sale for the first time in 20 years.
It even says visual novel only route is the easiest path.
It really is.
That's a vibe.
You just,
It
you just
makes
be like, just
sense.
read
I
it.
mean, like,
Yeah,
Simply
no,
just
it
read
does
it.
make sense. Things
then you
definitely
don't
get
get
lost in
Heaven's Feel
adaptation. We talk
experience.
about things getting lost in translation. Sometimes things get lost in adaptation. It's just really crazy out here. It's very easy for things to get out of control if you don't take steps to draw out nice visual visual aids for people, bro.
dude,
Also, Atraxia?
was trying to be comedic.
Oh, that's
so.
the sequel.
Is
That's the
this
sequel visual novel.
is that a mistranslation? Because ataraxia is a word. Atraxia, I've never heard of.
I think they misspelled it.
bro.
Oh,
Nice.
I mean,
They
it is a
misspelled
Reddit post, so you know, take that.
Sasuga Blaze Blue inspiration. Am I right?
But I mean,
Atraxia is a word in ancient Greek philosophy.
it still
Okay.
seems really cool, nonetheless. Like, I mean, Fate always is like one of those series that I'm like, man, what they got going over there, probably pretty cool. Probably
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Fate has like the reputation of like being kind of like a check mark on like what make like if you're like a true anime fan.
I fucking disagree with that shit though, man. I think a lot of
I
people
don't
don't use
agree with it, but like
I
you know,
think-
back when it was like, oh, go ahead.
What is Miguel mad about?
No, I mean you can say what you need.
I mean,
I
I'm
got
just gonna say I don't agree with that, but like I remember like when I was like getting into anime that like Fate was always like on the list of shows that like people are like, oh, you need to like watch this if you want like a good idea of like, you know, what anime has to offer. I don't agree with it, but you know, I understand because like it is like, you know, a very like culturally like present franchise in anime and in visual novel and whatever. But you know, it's if you want to dive in, you
I
can.
think like so I've held this opinion about the Universal Timeline Gundam fans
Mhm.
where it's like they are anime fans by definition, but they have like a community that is just on the outskirts of what I generally tend to consider like the anime community, right? And I feel like Fate is in the anime community, but they're on that precipice, you know?
Mhm.
I feel like the entire Fate franchise is its own just like rabbit hole that happens to reside within the realm of anime.
Okay.
Is how I feel.
It's a whole universe.
It's an it's like yeah, there's something about Fate where when I watched it, I was like, I feel like I appreciate this not as like an artistic like work within the medium that I enjoy, but I found it interesting as this is a human construct that exists in our universe.
Mhm.
You know, like there's a dude out there who made this story and like the way that the paths branch in the story of Fate, I'm like, whoa, dude, that's pretty. It's pretty wild how like, what's the word? How divergent the paths really get.
Yeah, no, well, I think the crazy thing about it too is like, well, it's probably just me, but like again, it's like it splits off into 3 different routes, but I feel like you're supposed to like look at all 3 routes as a totality as a whole, in a way. I don't know how
Most
well I
people
can
don't think
articulate
about
this.
that
I
watching
know.
it.
I think I agree with that sentiment. I think that kind of
there's
like,
there's like a progression going from Fate to Blade Work to like Heaven's Feel that you can kind of tangibly see.
Yeah.
I don't know.
the minute differences make all the difference, and it's pretty impressive to watch, to be honest.
Here for it.
But it's also just cool. You know?
This is cool. I feel like that's what will draw a lot of people in if they even get remotely interested. It's just like, I don't know, it just feels like a cool show to a lot of people. I feel like say nothing on whether they get intimidated to the point where they don't want to have anything to do with it anymore, but you know,
You don't need to understand Fate.
it is what it is. It is what it is. Watch Ufotable do pretty things. Yeah, you'll be okay. You'll be all right.
Maybe watch Doomsday Night for novelty. All right, is it
what you're
my
doing to
turn?
people, bro? Yeah, well, let's do this one next.
Okay, this is a can of worms, isn't it?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. So, for those of you who don't know what this is or don't remember what this show is, Wonder Egg Priority is an original anime that aired back in 2021, produced by a studio that many of you might be familiar with nowadays, Cloverworks.
The goats.
Cloverworks did this show, and like this is pretty important because like 2021 was like widely considered a breakout year for Studio Cloverworks, as they released like a lot of shows that like garnered a lot of attention, and Wonder Egg was pretty much like leading that charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the same year that they did Shadow's House and Horimiya and
hey, look,
Neverland
Fate.
Season 2 for better or for worse. Hey, Fate, look at that, bro. But yeah, like Wonder Egg was pretty much like what got a lot of people talking about Cloverworks during that year. So, what makes Wonder Egg Priority difficult to recommend? Well, to me, it's 2 main things. 2 main things come to mind. The first thing is this show uses very sensitive subject matter in order to explore its central themes, and it's a whole laundry list of things that like it uses like that are very serious. So there is depiction of deep depression, there is anxiety, there is self-harm, there is negligent parents, there is gender dysphoria, and most prominently, central to like, you know, the synopsis of the show, there is suicide, a lot of it. And like, you know, these topics are like not meant to be taken lightly. Like I think that goes without saying. It also doesn't help that the primary members of the cast are all in middle school.
Yeah.
You know, like all the main characters are like 14 to 15 years of age, and that can often be a very turbulent period in one's life. You know, just a period where you're trying to figure yourself out, but you're not smart enough to do that yet. And you know, it's the combination of like the sensitive subject matter explored through characters who are underaged. Sounds like a recipe for a show with a high probability to be extremely problematic. You know, and that's like reasonably like a red flag for many people, and that would stop them from engaging with the show any further. So that obviously like doesn't sound very good. The second thing that comes to mind, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this, the conclusion of the show is an absolute catastrophe.
Yeah.
So for those uninitiated, Wonder Egg Priority had 12 episodes in its original run, and after those 12 episodes finished airing, Cloverworks announced that a special episode, an hour-long episode, would air 3 months later and close out the series. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this final episode of Wonder Egg Priority is the biggest bag fumble I've ever experienced in my time watching anime. Like, I'm gonna do my best to like explain like what makes like this episode in particular so bad within the context of like this show. So like first of all, the first half of the episode, like because like you can see like it's like 47 minutes long, which is essentially like an hour of TV runtime. The first half of the episode was an incredibly lazy recap of the entire show, and it's even worse if you remember that there was already a recap episode around the midpoint of the show that essentially subtracted one episode from the total count. Second of all, so little of like the new content in like the second half of the episode was consistent with like what we learned and experienced throughout the show. The stakes of the plot were like completely uprooted. The characters like acted in ways that were like unprecedented, and like the closing sentiment rang pretty hollow. Like it was a conclusion that felt like it was like pulled out of thin air. Like it made zero sense. It felt very underwhelming and unrewarding, and it is an absolute shame that this episode had to bookend what was otherwise an amazing show. Like it really is such a shame. I can't express that enough.
This hurt a lot because I remember watching Wonder Egg Priority while it was airing, and while it's airing, I remember us having conversations amongst ourselves, and all of us being like, "This is pretty fucking insane." While this is going on, there were so many really really cool and impressive things that they were doing with this story and how they were telling that story, that it was like one of the shows that watching it week to week, it was just like, man, I really can't wait until the next episode drops, like every single time. I was like really looking forward to it.
I could not shut up about this show. Like I pretty much like when it was airing, I think I like watched each episode at least 3 times, just like rewatching it or like showing it to other people. It was like I was obsessed with this show, and like it's not confirmed like what exactly happened for the final episode to end up the way it did. But the speculation is that the director and the lead writer had a creative dispute on how to conclude the series, and their refusal to like agree with each other resulted in the mess of the finale that we got. Again, that's just speculation, so it's like not definite, but like there is like, I guess, like contextual evidence like with what they've said about the series and like how they've commented on each other that's what people think. It also bears mentioning that the entire production cycle of like
I was gonna bring that up because
it was evidently strained. Like like they could not hide that from anybody. Like
we knew that was the case too, because they did a recap episode in a 12-episode series in the first place.
I did mention that, and like that subtracted 1 episode from the count, and like that kind of sucks. But it's a sign that like, you know, subsequent episodes like weren't finished, and there are also reports that the later episodes were delivered to broadcasting companies mere minutes before they were scheduled to air. That this is all to say that like, you know, the combination of like unhealthy production and creative disagreements should have indicated that, you know, a catastrophic conclusion was almost an inevitability. Which we did not want to believe that when it was airing, because like, you know, like I said, the show is like, it really is an amazing experience, and like I know that pretty much everything I said up to this point sounds strictly negative, and so like you might be asking if, you know, Wonder Egg Priority is even a show worth watching. You know, why is it on my list of things that I would want to recommend but can't? You know, I'm here to share my opinion that even despite all of its like production setbacks and an ending that will forever live in infamy, I think Wonder Egg Priority is still worth watching, and that the ending does not completely invalidate the merits that the show had established up to that point before it ended. I remember like adamantly calling like Wonder Egg Priority like a breakthrough original anime when it was airing, and absolutely. I had good reason to feel that way. Like diving into like, you know, what it is like on a thematic level, like it's an incredibly like meaningful and well-intended show about like how humans can confront their negative feelings and learn to grow from them. Like, even though that the subject matter in the show is very serious and shouldn't be taken lightly, like the way the show uses it to allow its characters to discover and understand themselves, it's done with so much care and respect that, it encourages the audience to engage with the central themes in good faith without being problematic.
Yep.
It's like, oh my god, like the internal conflicts of like the main character, like the main cast are like externalized in like these dreamlike settings, and we can like vividly see like each of them overcome like the manifestations of their unbearable negative emotions and like transform them into something beautiful and palpable, and like it helps them pursue healthier mindsets. And I think that's fucking awesome. Like it really does feel like a blessing that a show that puts like that much like care into something that a lot of people would say is like problematic, like it feels like a blessing that the show is able to exist.
Yeah.
And it achieves all this through like storytelling that like that can only be fully realized in anime, like the way that the shot composition is done, the camera work, like their choice of color, and like the character designs of like the main cast and the monsters they fight. Like it all comes together to like create an experience that is like so unique and so visceral and so thought-provoking that I wish I could recommend it to more people. I really do. But I also remember the terrible feeling of like being betrayed by how the show ended.
That was rough.
That it was heartbreaking. Like I felt I felt heartbroken seeing a project that I adamantly like followed and revered like completely collapse under the weight of its own ambitions. That's not a feeling I would wish on anybody, honestly.
Yeah,
It's like it's a tough recommendation, but like with all that said, like there is still so much good to be like found in this series that like I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge it in some way. And like if anything, like I hope that the anime industry like remembers what happened to this show, and hopefully that will encourage them to give projects like these like healthier production schedules, so that one day we will have more anime that don't have these stipulations behind them when trying to recommend them. So, and I'm still waiting for the day that Cloverworks like actually like hits it out of the park with an original anime and not have it end like this show did. So like,
yeah. I'm sure that'll happen eventually. I mean, Cloverworks has definitely proven themselves at this point, but it's
like
tough.
basically impossible to recommend a show that just doesn't have like a real ending.
Yeah, it's kind of hard trying to get into a show where like where the ending was so negatively viewed that it almost just don't want to watch it.
Yeah, and like that is really the biggest barrier to entry, because like I do truly think that like even though that the subject matter is like it's something that not a lot of people will like engage with in good faith, like the show does it super well. It's hard to recommend something that doesn't.
Humans are coded to remember endings too, so it's like it's even worse.
And,
it's even worse.
We were talking about it like earlier this week. It was like but yeah, like should you watch this show? It's up to you, like depending on how you like took what I said. I would say that it is still worth the watch, because like the series proper, like aside from the recap episode, is like it truly was something special. And yeah, like it's probably one of the hardest shows to like recommend to people nowadays, just because like people want something to have a good ending, like, and the ending is paramount to a lot of people. And nobody defends this ending. Absolutely nobody. There's not a person on this earth who has like seen this show and said like, yo, the ending is actually like not bad. I'm like, no, it's bad.
No,
it's
like we're not doing that. All right.
I would almost recommend against watching the ending if you feel
like
don't watch strongly about the show.
Just get that. I mean, this has like 49% on AnyList. That is really low.
That's so low.
Watch it like I watch Psycho Pass. The other
just
half
ignore
doesn't
the rest.
exist.
Just ignore
It does. It's not real. It's not real.
It's not real. You can't make me. You can't make me. All right, Miguel. What show did you want to do first?
Let's do.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Jeffrey. If you have something that you want to close off with, feel free. I just Oh wait,
I
what?
said everything. Hello?
Yo.
That was that was
Hey, yo.
it's
Inspect
breach
that.
containment. It's a
All right. So, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. This show, one super like product of its time. So when you watch it, it like looks very 2006. And as like we get older and older, and like more new people get into anime, this looks absolutely nothing like current anime now. It's like when you think of like current anime now, like just starting with like kind of like Sword Art Online, it's like everything looks like super polished, and like that's like kind of what people would think is like the really good looking shows. And the show doesn't look like bad by any means, but it's like it looks like what,
you know.
Yeah, it looks like what it looked like, 2006 to 2007 anime, which like
it's kind of like the comparison that people make to like 90s anime, where like obviously it looks different than things that release nowadays, but it's like a unique style that is like that it can only be like called 90s anime.
Yeah. And like the moe like art style is like something that we like kind of like understand because we like saw it when we were like growing up. But to people now, it's like it looks like fucking kind of like weird. I would say probably to most people. That's like a big like thing because as you start getting like recommending like older shows to people, just styles change and everyone's just gonna be like, what the hell? Pretty much is like, this looks like weird. Like I struggle to watch a lot of like 90s anime literally for that reason. I think 90s anime look like dusty a lot of times, which would probably piss off a lot of people. But and then another huge thing with this stupid show is the broadcast order makes absolutely zero sense. So there's like, okay, all right, it makes no sense unless you already like know coming in to like the show.
Okay, take us
because there's like the 2006 version and the 2009 version.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey, if you can help me out here, there's like it's like 22 eps total, I think, or something.
It's 28 episodes.
Yeah, whatever. There you go.
Yeah. We'll get to what a lot of those episodes are.
Yeah, plus like a movie. So the 2006 version is like whatever is like included in the 2009 version. All those episodes are in the 2009 version, and then they added 8 more episodes that are like an infamous arc, plus some other like stuff that's like kind of sprinkled in.
Yeah. So how it happened? Like if you like go back to like the 2006 version, you'll see that there are 14 episodes here. These 14 episodes, when they aired, were broadcasted out of order, and that's kind of like the rationality like behind Monogatari, except like less coherent. Where it's like, oh, like we want you to experience these episodes in a specific order because of how we wanted to, deliver like the narrative. I won't say that it was like, that I agreed with that, but it kind of made sense because like they didn't have like the episodes that they would eventually have in the 2009 version, which like Miguel said is basically 2006 with 14 extra episodes and reordered to be chronological. So when people are like recommending watching this series, they will recommend the 2009 version because it's everything in the right order, and there's basically like no difference between like this and the 2006 version content-wise, except the way it was broadcasted originally. So
would you say it's like strictly better? Would you say it's strictly better?
Yeah, I mean, like this is like the completed version of it.
Yeah. It's like it basically, instead of giving us a season 2, they literally fixed the order of the first season and then added like 14 more episodes or something, whatever it was.
Yes.
Which is
it was funny. It was very funny. It was funny when it was airing because like anime fans were like not privy to like the fact that they were getting new content in 2009. They thought it was just like a rebroadcast in the right order, and then suddenly like the first new episode hits like new content, and they're like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is just such a weird way to do things. Like because now we're like 15 years in the future. Like now we can explain it to everybody, that's already a bare venture to begin with. You have to explain shit to people.
Yeah.
And then, but people in the moment were just like, hey, look, a show that I used to watch, and it's like, wait, no, this is new. It's like.
Yeah,
I feel like that wasn't even the biggest. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Don.
That wasn't even like the biggest fiasco of like season 2.
Oh no, I'm gonna get it.
We're gonna talk about it right now.
All right. So the other big thing with recommending this show is there's an infamous arc known as the Endless 8 arc. So it takes place between episode 12 and 19 of the 2009 version. I don't think you should skip it because I think that you don't skip episodes when you watch anime. But these 8 episodes are exactly the same except with some different drawing. It's from different clothes, basically, and a couple other minor changes.
Dude,
It probably did not need to be 8 episodes. They maybe could have done 3, and then you could have got the message across, and it would have been kind of cool. It's like, because when you get like, I don't even know. I don't even want to say the payoff is like worth it, because it's like, it does feel stupid after 8 hours. And I watched all 8 of these in one sitting for some unknown reason.
I was there, bro. I showed them to you.
He said, "It's crazy that you rewatch series." My man watched the same episode 8 times in a row.
What the fuck, bro? What? Okay.
He's like, we don't skip episodes. Oh my God.
There's a YouTube video documenting like the weekly drop in like score on like anime. Oh, now the second season got as
That's
it
awesome.
progressed through Endless 8.
That's so funny.
It's so funny. The way my brain hit was like, because, okay, so that arc makes you change the way you see one of the characters fundamentally. I'm not going to go into it, obviously, because if you want to watch it, you can watch it.
Mhm.
But it's like, that's like such a cool payoff. And then with the movie, that is like, I think one of the best like anime movies like pretty much ever made. I think that the peak of like disappearance is like, that's like the bar for like anime to me. Like one, like among the bar. Like this shit is like amazing.
Mhm.
But you can't get to this shit unless you watch Endless 8. And like obviously everything else. So this movie is worth Endless 8. That's like basically my general thought process.
It was the reason why I think we got the movie in the first place.
It really like this movie though. Like I love how like I don't know if I'd call it a trope, but the fact like anime movies that recontextualize the main series, I adore.
Oh
that
my God.
whole like
Give me that.
I don't-
Give me- inject it into my veins, please.
like I don't know. There's so many anime that have stuff like this, like Madoka, Evangelion. This like there's so many anime movies that don't necessarily like change the canon, but like they sort of change the canon, but like they recontextualize the main series in a way where I'm like, bro, like this is knowledge that I didn't have, but looking at it from this angle is so wild. I love that shit, bro.
Mhm.
Yeah, I absolutely like love this movie, but it's like it's hard to like rewatch because like Miguel said, like this is basically like the payoff for like watching the series, and like any anime movie that is like inherently like connected to like a TV series, like you would probably like want to watch the TV series and then go into the movie, like just like even if like you're rewatching it.
Yeah.
But that's made harder because Haruhi, like we said, like there is the Endless 8 that you need to get through. And so it's like I love this movie. It's not a movie that I rewatch too often just because like I feel like I need to watch the series before it, and that's harder to do.
Yeah. It's difficult.
I'm gonna go slightly back to Endless 8 really quick.
Okay.
So again, Endless 8 is 8 episodes are exactly the same, just reskinned. Like just pretty much the only thing that changes like people's clothes while they're wearing it.
I'm gonna cut you off because I want to add something to this.
Okay.
It's so funny because like Miguel says like, oh, like they just like reuse the episodes, like they like wear different clothes.
Oh, I know what you're about to say. Yeah, go ahead.
This is probably like the least lazy like way to do like what is essentially like recaps that I think has ever been done, because like they do like draw different clothing and they do draw things that from different camera angles. Like this is like extra effort that needed to be put in to make these episodes feel marginally different. And like KyoAni is like literally the only studio that would put that much effort into making recap episodes like without like actually just like taking scenes from the previous iteration of the episode. It's like it's so fucking crazy to me. Does it like you know, justify the fact that it had to be 8 episodes? No, but it's just like a funny little like tidbit.
So like if you don't understand what Jeffrey's saying, it's saying like they didn't just grab the episode and do it and show it again. They had to get the first episode, they had to draw it again with different clothes, and they changed the angles, which means that you're reanimating everything again. So even though it's basically the same thing as a viewer, you are watching something new. These like things are like relatively relevant. I've never said that. It's relevant to when you find out the payoff of Endless 8, because the idea of Endless 8 is that like, I didn't even say what the show's about, but the main character is like the unknowing god of the universe, and as long as like something is like wrong in her head, it's like basically they're in summer vacation and it's like something's wrong in the summer vacation. We did not do something we were supposed to do, and because we didn't fucking do something we were supposed to do, they just do it again. But none of the characters really know that they're doing it again.
Over.
Yeah.
And then until that one thing that needed to be done got done, that's why we kept seeing it over and over again. Endless 8 really should have only been 3 eps, probably. You could have done the first episode, then you could have done one where you kind of like redo it with some different angles, maybe a little bit more changes here and there to like see it's like, okay, we're watching the same thing, but at least something is changing from the first episode because we know that something needs to change because that's why we're getting a repeat. And then the third episode could have been largely the same, and then you finally get the change by the character that needed to change something, and then it could have been done. And it's like much more reasonable. It's like still excessive, but it's not 8 episodes of the same thing.
Yeah. I feel like this show will just cause confusion with some people. Like it's like we're putting it on the list of like good shows that are hard to recommend, but I feel like where this hits hardest is for people that aren't getting recommended things, and you might just be looking for things to watch. And like, let's say you stumble across this series and you go and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna start at the beginning because that's what's reasonable. And then you go and you watch the original 06 series, and then you boot up 09 thinking that it's gonna be brand new shit, and then it's just the same thing.
It's actually
different orders.
It's actually not that hard nowadays because like if you like go like Haruhi is like on Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
So Crunchyroll like has the broadcast order, and I think like if you like click the link on the 2006 version, it will just like take you to the full 2009 version. There's basically no difference between them. It's like, so like, you know, if you go down to the link,
the bouncing around. So the in Haruhi, you have like maybe 3 to 4 standalone episodes.
Review title.
I know.
Why is that the most helpful?
Okay. And then you have like a few like mini arcs that vary from like, you know, like 2 to 5 episodes and stuff, plus Endless 8, which is 8 episodes. So like in the 2006 version, it's just like bouncing around arcs, which is like mad confusing. I don't know why the fuck shit does that. Like, I get like the artistic vision, but I think that for the 99% of people, they're just gonna be fucking confused.
Yeah, it's weird because like, you know, like the arcs that were added in 2009 version, like do make sense to be like put into the episodes of 2006, and because they did not have those episodes, like I don't know like the rationality behind like not adapting those like at the same time, but it's like a lost history to me. But you know, it fixed itself eventually. But back in the day, people were like hella confused. So
tough.
Yeah, like I think people don't think when they make TV shows sometimes, because now that we're like, this show's 15 years old or whatever it is, we get it kind of. It's like, or 20 years old actually, almost. Fuck. So we get it. But in the moment, everyone's just gonna be so fucking confused, and like that's just such a weird way to do your media. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey man.
You know,
also there's
Still
like,
here for it.
you guys remember how in Ava there's like that standalone frame in the elevator that lasts like whatever amount of time?
Yes.
In the last episode of Haruhi,
Oh
there are 2 scenes that are literally longer. There's a scene that's literally longer than both of the infamous Ava scenes put together.
The long camera angle. The long camera take. I forgot about that, dude.
Because I was there when Miguel watched Haruhi for the first time. Like I was basically like showing him the show, and like we got to the last episode, and we literally like brought up we brought up a stopwatch to see how much time was like spent on like the singular frame, and like compared it to like, you know, the other infamous scenes from like, you know, Ava that is like super long, and like it really was like not even comparable. Like,
well, the thing is, in Ava there's 2 scenes, and it's longer than both of them put together.
You could reasonably argue there's a purpose for both scenes in Ava as well.
There's a purpose in Haruhi.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I would say.
Let's say.
I would argue Ava's doesn't have a purpose. You're just lying.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Did they run out of
The elevator one?
Who knows?
Maybe. The elevator one, I could see where someone stretches. The other one? No. Come on.
Oh, also, Haruhi's like kind of a bad person. That's like semi-relevant.
Yeah.
But, you know, you could have bad main characters.
Yeah,
it's
let's go, Aaron.
fine.
I mean,
Not
it's
sure.
a character that sparks debate is, I mean, that in and of itself is usually pretty good, right?
How
Yeah.
different is Haruhi from Eren Yeager, really?
Oh my, okay, moving on.
Oh
Wait, is it-
my
Oh,
god.
I lose my mind. Okay, the one I'm
Oh,
gonna be
no.
starting with is Higurashi,
All right.
or When They
Those
Cry.
are some
And
fucking That's some
Holy
2006 right there.
Yeah.
That's some 2006
Yeah,
anime, bro.
Yeah, no, it is. Look at the size of their heads, bro. This shit is crazy.
And their eyes, bro.
Yeah, it's insane. So Higurashi is hard to recommend for a bunch of different reasons. And like I said, it pains me because it's a show that I really do want to recommend to a lot of people, but there's a few different barriers of entry. First of all, it's really long. Like it's a long series. In and of itself, there's like 26 in this one, and then the sequel there's 24, and then there's like OVAs that you can choose to watch if you want to. And then there's this, and then there's this, and then this is bad, and then and this is even worse. So it's like it's already really long, and unfortunately, it's in the position of the later iterations being a step down in quality from the earlier ones, and so like as humans, right, recommending something that I think gets worse as time goes on is already like hard to do, because it's like you're not going to be experiencing that payoff that you're looking for, right? you're not getting like that end product that you necessarily.
We're just gonna call this the psychopath effect from now on.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's super tough, but the original series, it does a lot of really cool things. It is once again a visual novel adaptation, and the themes of the show itself have to do with like different timelines, different outcomes, and there's like celestial stuff. There's like even like bits of religion in there. Like there's like a lot of things that it does. It's a very complicated show. Again, I do keep coming back to Dean too. I don't know what's going on here, but
This one was alright.
It's like I'm just saying like this is the second Dean show on the list, bro. Like how many more are we can
No, Khalil, it's so crazy because like this was literally like the same year as like Fate Stay Night, and I would call like that adaptation of Fate Stay Night like one of the worst like visual novel adaptations, then I would call this one of the best ones.
Yeah. No, I think in
so
terms
crazy.
of how Higurashi does the visual novel adaptation, it's not only it's like innovative in and of itself. Like it's so different than what we've experienced before, and it's also just like the quality is so high. But that being said, like because of the way that it does do it, I think for some people it will be confusing to try to follow. Like there are a lot of things that are going on. There's a lot of subtlety in the way that the direction of the show goes, and like there's definitely stuff that you can miss and then kind of be taken aback by like when those things actually have severely large impacts and the later happenings in the show. And it's also horror. Like it's also like there's not that many good horror series in anime, which is why it hurts that I can't recommend this more, right? Like because I feel like a lot of horror series are really bad in anime. They're really not good.
You can even like look to the later adaptation, like the more modern adaptation of like this series, and that's like bad horror, and like the older stuff is good horror. So
So like, you know, if someone is like, you know, I kind of like stuff in horror, it's like, okay, I don't have that many things to recommend you, but I do know of this one good show, but it's kind of hard to recommend for a few different reasons. But it is like it's just fair warning. Like this show it's fucked. It's absolutely fucked. And it's great because it's fucked, but that doesn't stop it from being fucked. It's really insane. Some of the things that happen, once again, I don't want to spoil, because I actually think that if you're even remotely interested in shows involving, you know, alternate timelines or even horror in general, like you should absolutely check it out. Unfortunately, that's not like a super big group of people in the anime watching community in general. But I had the privilege of watching this. I didn't watch this like back when it came out, right? I watched it way later into my anime watching career. I think I watched this over COVID actually, is when I watched this. And so like I had a lot of perspective already because I had already watched so many shows at that point, and I think that made this experience a shit ton better, like a lot. I really do appreciate what this show brings to the table, and at the same time, I'm like, I think there are a lot of people that would not be able to make it through it for various reasons. Even if we're just talking about the content of the show itself, I think it's hard. It's like hard to watch, especially some scenes for a lot of people. If you're squeamish, you should not watch this. This is not for the faint of heart in the slightest. But if you can stand it and you can stomach it, I think the payoff for at least the first what, 2 series were pretty good. This one and Ray, right? Or Kai, sorry.
Yeah, Kai. And then Ray too, so.
Yeah.
First 3 seasons were pretty
But
solid.
please don't watch don't watch this.
Yeah, that's not good.
Don't watch this.
There's a very clear cutoff point, just like from how it looks in the year it was released and the studio that did it. So
yeah,
you just know that that's the stopping point. So
yeah, exactly. It's super unsettling. Again, just because like the characters that are existing in this story that we're talking about, you know, they're young, they're cute, like, and they just, you know, people hate seeing potentially not good things happen to characters that look very innocent and whatnot. And so with that, I will say go ahead and watch it. It does have, you know, it's like 50 episodes or so.
It's like Higurashi is like such like an interesting case, like in the context of like, you know, great anime that are hard to recommend, because like I think that the aspects that make it hard to recommend are like what make it like so unique as a watching experience.
Yeah.
One of those points is like, you know, this is an anime that was like released in like 2006 and it looks the part. It's very much a product of its time, but like that's to its advantage because of how it like juxtaposed like extremely moe designs with like the horror aspects, and like it just really does that so well. And that's something that you can only do if you were like back in 2006, because like if you try to do something like this like nowadays, people are going to think it like looks weird, but because it was made back then, it makes a lot of sense why they would use this very like accentuated like art style for it. And it like I called it like just a few minutes ago, I called it like this one of like the better visual novel adaptations. Like the reason I say that is because a lot of visual novel adaptations, like especially like in this specific time period, were just like a mess because they tried to like adapt everything in one go, and it doesn't work out at all. But because there are like time travel aspects of this show, it makes sense why, like, you know, you would like, I don't know if this is like a spoiler or not, but like they will do something will happen, typically bad, and then the whole thing will like reset. And that is like to emulate the feeling of like playing a visual novel and then playing a new route.
Yeah.
It's very, very clever the way that this show does it. And it makes sense. But again, like that's a point of like, that's like a barrier to entry, because like some people to that wouldn't make sense if they don't know like what the source material is. Yeah. And then we're just like, oh, we're just like, well, we're doing it again? Like, why are we doing that? And then everything like eventually makes sense. Like it all comes together in like the finale of like Kai, like why everything has been happening this way. And it is just like a very cool experience. But like those are like some things where it's like, oh, like it makes it a cool experience for us, but to some people that would just like, it would dissuade them from watching it. So it's interesting to talk about.
It's like one of those shows that I do legitimately think that this show is like genre defining even. But again, that just makes it even worse that it's like, damn, the average person, I don't know if I could just tell them like, yo, just go ahead, especially if they don't know what it's about. Like, I think that like that whiplash for a lot of people will be very off-putting in a lot of ways. They're gonna boot up and they're gonna see these characters in these settings. And when stuff starts happening, they're gonna be like, "Yo, this is not what I signed up for. This is not at all. This is not at all what I signed up for. Not at all what I thought I would be getting." But yeah, I think it's, again, definitely worth it. And it's a show that I have a lot of fun rewatching whenever I get the chance. Albeit, you know, it's a pretty big commitment to rewatch, unfortunately, because it's like 50 fucking episodes, and 80 million shows in backlog, but that's besides the point. Check it out. Check it out if that sounds like something it would be appealing to you. And otherwise, you know, you'll be okay. I'm sure. I feel like most people have at least heard of this show at this point, but I don't think that many people have actually like sat through it to experience what it has to offer. So, you know, different conversation entirely. Back to
Bobby.
Yeah, back to Bobby.
All right, Bobby.
Oh boy.
We got this show.
Bobby's
This is really your episode, Bobby.
Yeah, this is
You're
this is straight up his favorite. So, you know,
I'm actually a gatekeeper. Gintama and Monogatari are both my favorite anime, bro, and they're just impossible to watch. All right, so I had a conversation with someone literally 2 weeks ago, and they asked me. I was with like a few people, and one of them asked me, "What is my favorite anime?" And I told them it was Gintama. And like generally, the sentiment is, "Oh, I've heard of that show. Don't know what that is." If you are on the My Anime List rankings, even the Annie List top anime rankings, you'll notice that Gintama's on there multiple times. There were multiple Gintama entries on like the top 10 for both.
I actually think it's number one. No, isn't it number one? And yeah, the final.
Oh shoot! Yo,
it's number 1 and 2.
1 and 2, baby. We out here.
Yeah, shout outs to Frieren.
Back.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, but like, so people who watch Gintama love Gintama, and I'm no exception. But the people that I was talking to, one of them said, "Oh yeah, I saw that show. The first like 40 episodes kind of sucked." And I was like, "Dang, bro." And that's not something I haven't. It's something that I've heard before, right? It's something that I've heard before, where it's like Gintama's a slow burn. You have to get into it, but once you're into it, it's the goat Tama. You know, this is like it, and it's partially because of two things. One, the style of humor is very, very, it's like absurdist, dry, and referential, right? And so, because it's kind of dry, you kind of have to get a feel for the cast and the characters before you really start to be like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, the scenarios that they're getting put in, if you don't really know the characters, it doesn't really, like, resonate with you. But once you keep on watching, you get a better, stronger feel for, like, the chemistry that, like, exists between the characters. Things start to get like funnier as you keep going, as you get more invested. And that's another thing with the humor, right? It's really, really subjective, like as to what's funny. And something that Gintama does, it's a Shonen Jump series that frequently uses references to other Shonen Jump material. And there's a lot of references into a lot of things in general. Like, so it's difficult to say that I can recommend Gintama to someone unless I know they're already really tuned in to the entire sphere of what a lot of the comedy gears itself towards. So, like, if you're not someone who's watched, like, Naruto, Dragon Ball, Bleach, like, Hunter x Hunter, like, a lot of jokes might just fall flat on you. And I'm sorry to say, like, it's just unfortunately how it's got to be, which is unfortunate because in terms of, like, the actual story of the show, when it does, like, I would say the split is about 65% is like comedy, gag, slice of life, day-to-day stuff, and 35% is like very like deep, methodical, like storytelling that's like very powerful and emotionally resonant, right? And it's kind of difficult to say, like, I can tell you to watch Gintama if you haven't already watched a lot of other anime outside of Gintama. And it's not even just because of the referential humor, it's also because of the nature of the story itself that they do try to tell. Like, the easiest way that I can describe Gintama to someone outside of the synopsis, which is not exactly that helpful, is this is the story of a shonen protagonist who failed his journey and is now reinstated into society with no marketable life skills. Like, he has spent his entire, like, first 20 years of his life basically fighting for his friends and, like, everything that he holds near and dear to his heart in, like, this war against, like, alien invaders, right? This is his shonen story. That's his life. And now he runs an odd jobs business because the aliens who won the war have banned the samurai swords, and now the main character samurai has nothing left to do. So he's just trying to get by and pay rent every month. Like that's his life, that's his story. And it's really fun and interesting, but I think it really only hits hardest if you have watched other shonen, right? And to watch other shonen means you got to be watching hundreds of other episodes of other shows just so you can get this one. That's a hard sell, man. Like, and it's crazy because this is my favorite show. It has the most organic character development of anything that I feel like I've seen. It's like the funniest show that, for me at least, like it hits for me really well. Like it's the funniest show I've seen. And the action is incredible when it decides to be that way. I love like the character arcs and like how emotionally like powerful the show is. There's something about the storytelling where it's like the metaphors that are used and like the way that they really tie the characters in with each other, like their kind of relationships with each other. It's like, it's just beautiful. But like, it's unfortunate that you have to commit so much time to get into the show, and you probably had to already have like a repertoire of anime that you have seen to even understand a lot of the references they make. Because it's not even just to like other shonen stuff, it's to a lot of random stuff. Like they'll make tons of Gundam references, they'll reference Doraemon, they've referenced like Love Live before. They'll just do whatever. Like you gotta be hardcore anime watcher to get like a lot of the humor, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the percentage disparity that you were talking about with like comedy versus serious storytelling, I think that was like something that hit me really hard, because like anytime I see a clip of Gintama, it's always one of the comedic sections. Like that's just like, it's just what people choose to share with people.
It's more clippable, right?
Yeah, and like so for the longest time I thought that Gintama was strictly a satire series. I didn't think there was like actually anything original to it. I thought that it was just trying to do the whole shonen parody thing, and that there was nothing else. It wasn't until pretty late after I was like, oh, it actually does have its own thing. And I was like, man, 200 episodes is that, I mean, that's commitment. Like that's not a little
only the
bit.
first season.
Yeah, I know.
There's
that's what I'm
almost
saying.
400.
I'm like, there's definitely a lot here, because this one, and then there's one with the degree symbol, right? Like what's with this naming convention too, by the way? Well, can we talk about that? Like, what's again?
You know what's really funny is that they're really self-aware about it. Like in the comedy bits of the show, they're also very like break the fourth wall type of humor. They'll talk about how the logo keeps very slightly and subtly changing every single time. It's crazy. You guys actually mentioned earlier, like what was the longest you've ever seen a single frame stuck on an episode before? Yeah. And in Gintama, the answer to that is like 13 minutes.
Why is that?
Jesus Christ.
What do you mean? This is the same show. The anime staff for the show, you can tell they love Gintama, right? Like they run with the craziest nonsense. They've done MS Paint openings. They've done openings where like the main characters fail to reenact the opening. They've had like an episode where half the episode was just them as mannequins, and it's just like a slideshow of them as mannequins like running through scenes like comedy bits. And it's like, what the heck is going on in the show, bro?
Sounds like pop shit.
When they go beyond the referential humor, like it's just the most like you can't get this anywhere else. You can't. It's literally like, this is a one of a kind show that just, you can't get this experience elsewhere. Like they had a whole arc where they took a real life popularity poll of the characters and then made the arc revolve around the fact that the characters were being spiteful about their popularity poll rankings. Like, what are you talking? Like, what are you supposed to say to that, right? Like, it's just, the show's crazy.
wasn't like the author also on there, or like the
Yeah,
original
no,
creator?
because the fans of it. So this series is really troll, right? The fans are also a bunch of trolls. The author was was voted in as one of the top popularity poll characters. So part of the plot, the plot of that arc was the characters would try to kill the characters ranked above them. So by default, the people who are lower will start rising. So they killed the author in the show. He canonically got killed by his own characters.
Good lord. You can't make this shit up.
It's so crazy, bro. This show's built different for real. Like
Cannot
it's
make this shit up.
insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, I with all of that context, I guess it kind of makes sense that they're rated so highly, especially like because you're saying a lot of the referential stuff in humor is also like really deeply ingrained within like Jump in its culture, right? Like so that makes sense because a lot of people have. I mean, obviously, a lot of those shows are like the most popular on the planet, and so like if it feels like there's a show that is specifically tailored to them, especially on top. I mean, I think the people that do decide to take the plunge and actually stick with it, there's not really going to be a whole lot to not like, right? Like it kind of has everything that they're looking for.
Yeah, like I think that this show it's like I've heard I've heard it described this way years and years ago, but like I've heard someone describe Gintama as the bridge between like a battle shonen and like a battle seinen, and in the way that like it is a sort of a battle shonen, but the way that the series like because you have to watch a lot of battle shonen to like get all of the references, but the way that it treats itself when it is in that more serious, like it's actually telling you the real story kind of way is way more akin to seinen series. Like there's no like super special attacks or anything. There's no like crazy like bombastic like shonen like evil dark side like weird nonsense magic power systems that really happen. It's just straight up like the fights are just plain gorgeous, like incredibly done choreography and cinematography, and the characters are driving the story like in every aspect, and not in like a power level kind of way, but in a more like philosophical, like this is how I live my life, like this is how I'm going to choose to do things kind of way, which is more typically akin of like a seinen series.
No, I mean I've heard about you. I've heard you gush about this show so many times. I think one day, on principle, just because it's your favorite, I will watch it.
That's a lot.
I know, but you know, I feel like in some ways I kind of owe it to all of you to watch your favorite shows, and in some ways I feel like there's been vice versa. No. I'm not watching that straight up. I did try it though. I did try it. I did.
Yeah, you can just watch.
I gave it a 100 episode test run. Legit.
You can just watch Bakuman.
Wow, that's a tenth of the way through. Less than that,
bro. Listen.
Less than a tenth. It's an 11th actually at this point.
What am I? I am only human. What am I?
You can just watch Bakuman.
This is one day. Today is not that day, but one day.
Say one. I use any excuse to say One Piece. That's funny.
Oh my lord, bro.
Hey, when the new One Piece comes out,
to take One Piece seriously, I would definitely just read it. Like,
when the Studio Wit One Piece comes out, bro, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know how long that's gonna be, but starting it from the
But
beginning.
if you watch it every week,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's way less of an undertaking. I wouldn't mind watching it from the beginning. I really wouldn't. There's no way you could convince me to watch 1,000 episodes to catch up on something though. Like it's come on, like insane. All right, Dylan, you're up, my friend.
Yeah, so we got Todby Galaxy. Pretty, I don't want to say obscure show, but it's a pretty niche show. Especially like when it came out. And so I think the main problem with the show, and like the big caveat it's got, is that imagine Monogatari's kind of high text, no, not high text count, but
like the pace at which it
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
shows
speed
you
of the
things.
dialogue.
Yeah,
Yeah. Imagine that, but you double it. I don't know, sometimes triple. It's insane.
It's so fast.
It's absurd. Like if you look away for a second, you will have missed, I think, maybe 2-3 lines of dialogue, and it's almost absurd at how fast some of the characters talk at times. I think aside from that, like I do think like the structure of like the plot and structure of the show itself is kind of a turnoff for a lot of people. So you can like scroll back up to like the synopsis.
No,
I
yeah.
feel like, yeah, so it's like, it's a guy going through college and kind of realizing like his life in college is not really what it's all he's hoped it would be, and so it kind of explores this on an episode by episode basis. It's kind of like the same idea, just kind of like very minute. I don't say minute, but in like different ways and like different, I guess, takes on like the same thing. And I feel like that can be like a turnoff to some people. So like the structure, I think early on, especially early on in the series, is like main protagonist is like in a school club, and he's been in this club for like 3 years now, and it's not what he's hoped it would be when he joined it initially upon getting into college.
High
And
school
so-
sucked, but college won't, right? Surely.
Yeah.
I get to hit the
Surely.
reset button.
Yeah, and so like each episode, it kind of goes through like that same idea of him like realizing that his life is not very fulfilling at the time, and then like it will just rewind and reset to like the beginning of college again, and this time he picks a different club and he gets like the same outcome, except it's like a new episode. So it's almost kind of like, how do I put this? It's almost like the Endless 8 problem, where it's almost kind of like the same content, but we're just going around in circles, and I feel like that can be a big turnoff for most people.
It's definitely like a non-linear story, even though that
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like if you just like read the synopsis, it would just like, oh, this is college story. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
it-
if you
there's-
take one look at it, like in the
There's,
first
like,
episode, it's like,
yeah, there's time loop and parallel universe shenanigans, and that will immediately turn off some people. Aside from that, I think it's been a while since I've watched it, but there are a lot of references to like, I think, Japanese history, culture, and like
Yeah,
mythology.
no,
So
you're
like
right.
if you don't follow it or you don't understand it at all, you will be completely lost. And this is even with you like just following along with the text.
Just a straight up execution barrier
Yeah.
to watching
No,
the show.
actually, like it's. I
Outside-
also go ahead.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
outside of that, I do think like the color palette and like the art style, I love it, but I think it would turn some people away.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
actually what
It's
I
a
wanted to
unique
bring up
flavor.
was that I think that visually, I think it's incredible. Actually, I like have a really large amount of appreciation for how this show looks, or how the series looks, I guess we could say now. But I think it is quite a departure from like what people might be used to in current day anime, and so that in and of itself might like kind of put people off. Like, hey, go watch this, and then they see like, okay, it's a little bit older. It came out in 2010, and they look at the way that the characters are in the art style and whatnot. And I don't think I think if you know anything about how anime is made and the technicality and all that stuff, you couldn't look at the show and be like, no, bro, the art style looks bad. It just looks bad. It doesn't at all, but it is very different. It does look different than it's so visually distinct from pretty much every other show you will have seen up until this point, that I feel like a lot of people are kind of anytime something is a little bit different, they kind of feel like, I don't know, bro, it looks kind of weird, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
there's a trade-off to like making your art style and your character designs like unmistakable.
Yeah.
Because like that's pretty much like what like Masaki Yuasa, like all of the works that he's like directed, they kind of like have that caveat where like it looked like you could tell it looks like artistically very impressive, but it's like nothing that you've ever like seen before unless like you've watched like his repertoire. Like Ping Pong's the same way, like the subsequent content to Tadabi Galaxy, like Night of Short Walk on Girl and The Time Machine Blues, like they all have this very distinct art style, and like it maybe like turn off is like the wrong word, because like it is beautiful, but it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is like not what I expected from anime, that type of thing. Because
Yeah.
I thought anime looked like a certain way, like this, but turns out the canvas is pretty blank if you're like, if you're a director of his caliber. So
Yeah.
If it was made in Japan and it was animated, it's anime.
yes.
very, very, very lax balance here. People like to overcomplicate things, but what does it come down to? Japanese animated. Here we are. It also does thankfully have the privilege, like this iteration, Time Machine Blues, like came out pretty long after 12-year difference, if I remember correctly. And
it still looks the same, bro.
yeah,
as it always has.
It still like retains that same identity, still very much, and like even as a standalone, Time Machine Blues is an incredible series. Like it just really, really is.
That's like one of the benefits of having such a unique like style to the art, right? Is that because no one else is really doing the same thing but more refined, your individual work just feels more timeless.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a product of its time. It's just its own unique floating thing.
Yeah. I feel like there hasn't been anything like it. Like I don't know if there ever will be. Like it really like has its own lane. And I feel like nobody out of respect is going to try to breach into that lane to some extent.
Oh, right. Another caveat.
Mhm.
If you could go back to the original series, scroll down to like the streaming section.
Oh, like down here.
Oh no.
Yeah, click on
Oh.
all those links, please.
Okay.
Oh
All
no.
of them? Oh no. No, wait, no.
Goodbye.
No.
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay, I gotta full screen for this.
Wait, why aren't they available?
Because the licensing ran out. That's what
Oh, really? I
happens.
didn't know that.
Ah,
Oh no.
I mean, Funimation.
This site's just not here.
Funimation is not a thing anymore. But
Lost your way?
Lost your way.
Oh, lose your way.
Yeah, so if you want to watch the series,
Yeah.
you gotta fly the high seas, baby.
Or buy the Blu-rays.
Fun. So fun.
So good.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate when that happens. Bro, I wonder if any list is gonna take off the Funimation thing from everything eventually. Like they're just like, we gotta get rid of
I
it.
think they'll eventually will, but because it's literally not going to be there anymore. For any of them.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's just gonna redirect to nowhere for so many
It's
people.
a relic of the past.
All right, so next
There's not
is...
as many caveats with this series. It's just
All right,
Yeah.
my next one.
This one. There we go.
Yes, that one. All right, so this is Onimai. I Am Now Your Sister is the English name for this show. So this is the show that aired at the beginning of last year, so like winter 2023. And it's from Studio Bind, and they're most famous for being the people behind Mushoku Tensei.
Mhm.
So if you know that show, the studio behind that. So like, and this is a show that many people reasonably did not watch, and we'll talk about why that is. So like, full disclosure, so like before the show aired, I was the least likely proponent of it because of like how many like degenerate aspects there were to like the synopsis. Like you just give it one read and you'd be like, oh, I see, it's that type of show.
Yeah.
Like it did not look or sound appealing in the slightest, and I was very quick to like label the show as like one that will just like get tossed in the seasonal garbage pile, so to speak. But Bobby and Dylan had informed me, because like they were watching the show too, that it was actually quite good. And I was like,
we got pumped episode 1.
We thought we put it on our garbage anime wheel that we watch for garbage shows because we expected it to be garbage. And then we watched it and we were like, wait a second. And we were discussing, we were like, yo, does this show seem like it's like good? Like, I don't know about the premise, but like, does it feel like that? Like like the animation is like really careful. Like the character animation is like really good. It's like, is this like it's problematic, but like it's not bad though, right?
there was like some very particular care for the cinematography and shading in like a particular scene, and I think that like set off the entire idea that, oh hey, this show might actually just be good.
Yeah, like, I was definitely like very quick to like come around. I'm like, okay, this show like might actually like not only like might it actually be good, but like in the season it aired, it was probably like one of like the best shows in that season, like legit. And like, so like going back to the parts that people will think are a bit strange. So like, the main character is like an arrow addict, like hikikomori character, so like shut-in type. And if like that is like not disconcerting enough, there are gender bend elements. This guy, his sister is like a mad scientist type, and like she like fed him like a drug that turned him into a young girl. And he wakes up one day, he's like, "Oh my fucking god, what happened to me?" And then like the whole show like goes off from there. And a lot of people will feel like very off-put by that type of premise, because it does seem like it's gonna be like a very like trashy show, because of all the things that like are implied, like, oh, guy and girl body, like it's like a recipe for disaster in a lot of ways. And it's like it's one of those shows that like demonstrates like how extremely questionable premises can kill someone's interest immediately, like on the spot, and like stop them from experience a show that is in reality quite good and well worth watching if you're willing to like look past the parts that are less than adequate. Let's put it that way. So you know, after all that's been said, like you may be asking like what makes like Onimai like such, you know, a surprisingly high quality experience that I would want to recommend it. It's on my list. So the first thing that comes to mind, and like Bobby and Dylan hinted at this, but like it is like a visual spectacle given the type of show that it is. Like not a lot of people like expect like high fidelity stuff to like come out of like what is like a slice of life-ish type show. This is really not what they're known for, but really like the background art is always beautiful, like the lighting is always on point, like the camera work and shot composition, it brings every scene together like so organically, and like most importantly to me, like the character animation is incredibly fluid and expressive in a way that makes the whole show like
it's degenerately
consistently
good,
delightful to watch.
Character
It's like,
animation, by the way, it's like, bro, why?
it's like having this type of animation in a show that like sounds like has a premise like this is like, it's not a shame because the show is actually good, but it's like, you know, so many people will like not get to experience it because of, you know, of the preconceptions surrounding the premise. It's like that's how I feel about it. And it's like, you know, like this style of like charming yet intricate character animation is something that is so rarely seen in any anime, that it feels like a blessing whenever like one comes around. And if you know me, I don't say what I'm about to say lightly. But the animation in Onimai reminds me so much of Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, that is a show that like we collectively, like the five of us, have praised time and time again over the years for many different reasons, but one of them being like the unique brand of character animation. And I can't stress enough that like Onimai really is of that caliber when it comes to like, you know, its visual prowess. And like, that's all fine and good. Like, you know, being visually stunning is like never a bad thing in anime. But there have been plenty of shows over the years that have like great animation that don't have like the substance to back it up. And it seems at first glance that like Onimai would like fall into this category, you know, given how degenerate it looks and sounds on a surface level.
Mm-hmm.
But in an even like more surprising twist than the animation being good, this show, like against all odds, like actually respects the main character, and in my opinion, maybe people will disagree with me, but it actually integrates like the gender bend elements into like their growth throughout the series in ways that are, I would say, are pretty well intended, you know, for what they are. Mm-hmm. I won't go too deep into how that's accomplished because it's kind of like a specific like moment to moment thing, and at that point I might as well just like tell you to like watch the show. But what you need to know is that like the whole like anime science magic gender bend shenanigans is like meant to be a type of like rehabilitation process for the main character, like Mahiro, to like grow out of their less than ideal like shut-in lifestyle. Like, and in a way it kind of works because, you know, like as the series progresses, like they feel more and more optimistic about themselves and how they interact with other people. And this is going to sound absolutely absurd given the, you know, what the show looks like at a glance, but like it's actually, I found it like really profound because like in reality, like Mahiro like doesn't change too much personality wise like during like this whole process. They just like feel more comfortable with themselves and like people treat them with like more kindness because of the new appearance. And I'm like, that kind of gets you thinking because like it is fucked up how people are so quick to judge someone based on like surface level aspects like their appearance, when, you know, the person that they really are is like completely separate from those aspects. And like if this like one thing was different, then they would like see them in a whole different light, even though that it's not, it's like trivial, you know, respectfully, it's trivial, like your appearance, when compared to like, you know, the person that you are. And like I feel like the show itself is actually like in the same way, where like people are so quick to judge based on like the premise, because it is very questionable. I'm not going to say it's not questionable. But you know, the reality is that this show, like to me, it's like undeniably a good show, like against all odds and preconceptions. It's definitely something that I would recommend to more people more often, but like given everything that needs to be explained and clarified, like it's understandable like why I can't. And you know, even after everything I've said, like it is still like pretty degenerate in some instances. Like those are parts that you're like, it's going to be based on like your tolerance to like typical anime bullshit, whether or not you can stomach that. But if you can, I think it's a very like worthwhile experience, and definitely one that was like one of the bigger surprises to me in recent years. Because like I said, starting out, like I thought that this is just going to be like a nothing garbage show, like that nobody will ever talk about or nobody will ever think is good, and it's just going to be there for the people like Bobby and Dylan who kind of just like go through the garbage every single season so that we don't have to.
Hey, yo, chill.
Like you're doing God's work, bro. It's not a bad thing.
Hey,
We're anime
service is
Jesus out here,
appreciated.
bro. We watch it so you don't have to.
There you go.
Yes,
That's
yes,
part of our
but-
role here, bro. That's
Yeah,
This implies I'm suffering while watching these shows.
but yeah, this is the show that definitely like doesn't belong in that garbage pile. So if anything that I said about the show like today makes you want to watch it, then good. Just know that like, you know, the stipulations behind it going into it, and I think you'll be fine. So
sheesh, man. What a show. What a show. I remember explicitly choosing not to watch it at the time because of those things. I was like,
yeah, and it makes sense. I don't blame anybody. Like this, like, and like we don't blame anybody for like not watching the shows that we're gonna talk about today. But you know, like we're here to like say like, you know, we've watched it, we've experienced like, you know, the unique merits these shows have to offer, and we're here to tell you that they are worth watching. So
There you go.
so.
Plus,
Alright,
it has
Miguel,
guilty
do you have
gear.
a second? Yeah, it does have
Yeah.
guilty gear. That's true.
Any strivers?
Miguel, do you have a second, bro?
I have Mushoku Tensei,
Okay.
but like I feel like I mean I can talk about it, but it's not gonna be much. It's just kind of obvious.
That's fine. That's fine.
Hey,
You
fine.
guys
I
see it
wasn't
on
had
the
to be
wall, right?
super long thing, but
Yeah,
fine.
it's
Wasn't-
not much.
Let us
It's
know.
not. This is just obvious, and like literally, I'm the only person here who's watched it, and this is mostly because of what I'm about to say, basically. So like, okay, so talk about the good stuff of the show. This show's like production value and like that type of like stuff like that, like the stuff that if you just want to ignore the subject matter, is like this looks really good. It's really strong. The side characters in particular are really good, but the lead is like an awful person. So it's, and also another thing it has going against it is that it's an isekai, and like if you're isekai'd out, then you just will see that it's an isekai and you're like, I'm good, because you just kind of look at it, it's like, oh, this is just generic fantasy, whatever, like we've seen it all before. But it's like actually an isekai that's like coming out that's like really good, and it's like one of like the original ones, I think. So I'm not sure why the formula of all the new isekai that come out don't actually follow this one. That's actually pretty quality. That's like they all follow the Sword Art Online one, which is like less good.
I need to tell the story of a vending machine, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, okay, so basically, like general, like the main characters like kind of like just a lot of trigger warning stuff. So it's like pedophilia, grooming, sexual assault, sexual harassment, cheating. There's kidnapping. Like there's a whole lot of like trigger warning stuff that, understandably so, some people just not want to see. And like so the general premise of the show is he's reincarnated as like a small baby in like this fantasy world, but he still retains all his like prior knowledge, where being like a 30-something-year-old neat like loser dude, and he just has like horrible values and stuff, and he takes advantage of the fact that he still has his like memories, but he's in this like juvenile like baby body, and as he gets older like kid body, where he can get away with doing stuff that you wouldn't be able to do if he was actually what he was. So that's like obviously not great, but it's a really long story. Like so the first season was 2 cores, and then we got the second season, and then there's another core after that one. And from like I think it's a novel, a light novel, yeah. There's like a lot more coming, so it's like a really long thing. And it's just you as you watch the show, you see him like get like progressively better. Like he's not all bad. He's like a bad person, but then you have these like really good moments. And it's not even just him. Like his like dad in the when he's reincarnated,
there's so much
is like also showed to us like in a positive light, but he's also pretty horrible because like he's like forced himself on his wife like in the past, but like they showed him to us in like a positive light. So it's all just like negative subject matter stuff, but it's a really long story, and you see like this growth going on, and you throw in all the production value stuff that's like really good. It's like a weird show to talk about because like it's pretty popular though. Like a lot of people watch it.
Most recent one,
there is like merit in it.
2023. Yeah. Okay.
It's just like kind of like obvious. Like main characters are obviously bad, but my like thing that I used to talk about it is like in Game of Thrones, like 2 of the leads are like in an incestual relationship. That's not great, obviously.
Okay.
And then they pushed like a child off of like a thing just because they caught them. They're like, oh shit, we should just kill this guy.
It sounds
Because,
like
like,
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, literally. And so it's like that's
It's
like
literally just Game of Thrones.
yeah, that's like not great. But Game of Thrones is like an amazing show, and like most people, other than like the last season, will talk about like all its like positive. So like yes, there's like bad people doing bad things, but it doesn't hide behind it. Like the actual the actual story itself can be really strong, and it is like a redemption story type of thing. Like he's not going to be awful all the time. It's mostly really in like the first like half of the first core. He's still bad after that too, but it's the truly deplorable stuff is mostly in the very beginning. You see him getting a little bit better as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean the characters and the problematic themes aren't even like that I don't think that like is ever what puts me off of a show. I think what put me off of this show is that it's isekai. Really, that's
the other thing. That's the other thing going for it. Like, even if you're willing to like watch like problematic media or however you want to call it, it's like if you're isekai'd out, which I completely understand if you are, is like you're just like not like if you're an isekai fan, you're isekai eaten, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're just a regular dude who's just like I've seen enough isekai, like I'm good. Because like when you look at the surface level of it, it just looks like a regular fantasy isekai. But I think it's a really strong show. It's just particularly once you get to like the second core of the first season, it gets the first part was still pretty good, but it gets like a noticeable jump in quality. And season 2, I haven't seen all of it yet, but from what I've seen, it's also very 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 strong. It does just get better and better.
I think it's funny that like this studio Bind, because like I said, like they also did like the show that I just talked about, like Onimai.
Yeah,
like they just like have a habit of like picking up like things that are like problematic on the surface and then turning them into actual like good shows. So it's like
I've never heard of it other than that, right?
What?
Like Studio Bind, they've never done anything else.
They've only done Mushoku Tensei and Onimai and like some PV or type thing, but these are the only like 2 shows that they've really done.
And for like a new studio, like Mushoku Tensei is like a big project because it was like the first isekai pretty much, or one of the first ones, and it's gonna be a long ass show. So it's pretty crazy that this supposed new studio, unless it's like a sub creation of like some other bigger studio,
Mhm.
is like getting like such a high profile project.
It's funny whenever I talk to Miguel about the show, because like I keep telling him that like the reason I didn't initially watch it was because like, you know, the reasons that he described, like, you know, the problematic stuff, and it's like and it's isekai. I'm like I don't really feel it. But then like obviously it garnered a reputation of being like very good, like even like in the mainstream eyes. And then I'm like, I don't know, maybe someday. And then I go and watch something like Oni Mine. It's like, you fucker, bro. Oh, like, okay, maybe I'll watch it sometime. So
yeah, I probably will at some point, but Jesus, man.
It is an isekai.
Yeah, I know. It's just, you know how it goes. It's like, fuck. I just lose a little part of myself every time I make it stop at some point. All right. I guess I will do mine. I think, how are we on time? It's been like hour 45 minutes.
12:30.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think my recording time is a little bit different. I have to talk about this. I'm sorry. I have to talk about this, guys.
The goat.
Now listen. If you've been tuned into this podcast for long enough, you've heard me talk about this show before. But I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to tell you guys why it's off-putting to a lot of different people. So Abyss is a show that came out in 2017 and legitimately to me and to many others really changed the medium in terms of what a pure fantasy show can do. It's world building, it's character development, how it's so intentional with every little detail that they decide to put into this world that our characters are in. It just makes it really, really compelling and it's really immersive experience. You get really sucked in to the world that is the Abyss. You have so many questions that do get answered, but every question answered presents 3 or 4 more. You're so inquiring at all times, just trying to learn about these characters and why they are the way they are and what are they going to encounter in this crazy, crazy situation that they've been put into. Now, Abyss, its main characters are children. Like Rico is, I don't even know canon ages at this point. They're very clearly children though. If you look at the key animation here, children, very, very clearly children. Why is this a problem? Well, it's not a problem in and of itself, but to many, it could be a problem because the situations that these characters are put into are not situations that you want to see children go through, right? And I think that is very important to the narrative. It is literally the point, is that our main characters have like this childlike innocence because they are children, and they have to be confronted with this world that is very brutal and it is unforgiving and it doesn't care if you're grown or not, right? All that matters is the survival and continuing to venture down. That being said, like I said, our main characters are very, very young, and a lot of people don't like to see, young characters put into these dire circumstances that they're put into repeatedly. It's not even like it's, one like, oh, what was that? That was just the Abyss is something that is I would not want to be thrown in there. I would just put it that way. It is really, really messed up, and there's a lot of things that are all trying to kill you. There's a lot of things that want to do you harm for one reason or another, and even the Abyss itself does you harm in certain circumstances. And so I think that in and of itself definitely puts a lot of people off. Even going beyond that, though. So I did want to bring this up because, like I said, I think this particular aspect I've never really talked about. So the creator of the show, Akihiro Tsuhishi, he is the subject of quite a lot of discourse, and it's because he's the original creator of what I tout to be one of the best shows in medium period. But he has some very risque or taboo, you could say, inclinations. Now, to my knowledge, I've done some research on it and whatnot. I don't know if there's anything like hard set. There's like things that he puts out on social media and stuff like that. I don't think he's like caught charges or anything like that. I don't want to say he has. If he hasn't, if you do know info on that, feel free to pass it, because all my looking, I couldn't find anything like that. but his the things that he chooses to put out and his opinions on certain things are very, very ugly, right? Like it's not pretty, and for that reason, you know, there's a lot of people that don't want to support the series because you're supporting him, and that is fair. I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna defend this guy. I'm not gonna do anything of this sort. He is I like, it's so interesting, right? Because I think he demonstrates that a lot of people that go out and they make these crazy, like, especially when we're talking about fiction that create things, especially to this extent, like, you know, they say like most brilliant artists are like kind of fucked up in the head in some ways, but there's like a good type of fucked up and there's a bad type of fucked up, and his type of fucked up might be bad. It might be bad. It might be good. It's like kind of hard to say. Yeah,
it's unsettling.
To lean one way, favorable or unfavorable, it would lean unfavorable.
Yeah,
it's a unique mind that man has.
Yes, yeah, and so like I said, it's the double-edged sword of, I think the way his mind works like allows him to do things like this, which I think is very valuable. And then on the other side, it's like, we kind of get some baggage with that, and that is not necessarily what anyone wants to deal with. Like, that's not something that I would want to force upon anyone. I would also say that another thing is that it's one of the shows that breached mainstream. Like it at this point, I think nobody doesn't know about the show. And the more people that know about it, the more controversy arises, because people that watch the show and they enjoy the show in the sense that the problematic things, or the things that you say are quote unquote problematic, there are things that are straight up problematic and there are things that aren't problematic. The things that are problematic, they cause a lot of discourse, because the people that watch it still can enjoy it despite those things, and the people that don't want to watch it, it's because of those things, right? For the most part, that's usually like where it comes down to. So the example that I'd like to give you guys is not too long ago. This was back in November. There was this conversation on Twitter, because a K-pop idol, talked about shows that he was watching. He was talking about shows that he was watching, and Made in Abyss was one of the shows that came up. And suddenly Twitter went into a frenzy, calling it like, essentially wanting this guy to be canceled, because they were like, oh, that show is so messed up. It does this or that, right? It involves children, this and that, right? And so like, that's what I mean by the more that it gets out there and the more people know about it, the more these conversations happen. And so it's hard, like as a recommender, right? It is difficult to look someone in the eye and say like, yeah, like, you should watch this. It's my favorite show. And that pains me. And that pains me because, like I said, it is my favorite. But at the same time, like, these are children, right? These are children that are getting harmed in these ways. And some of Tsukushi's inclinations, as I said, I'll just keep calling them inclinations. And so some of the things that he likes do manifest, like they're exhibited in the show in a way that is kind of superfluous. Like you don't necessarily need them there, right? Thankfully, the anime adaptation is much less dense on that than what I hear from the manga, which is one of the reasons that I tell people that this show is really better watched than read. That aside, obviously, like OST existing and stuff alongside of it, and the art and the backgrounds, and there's so many good things to talk about with this show, but that it does reduce the density of those inclinations, like showing up in the actual show itself. There are some things here or there that when you watch the show, you're gonna be like, was that really necessary? And you're not crazy. It wasn't.
No, it was not.
You're not crazy. You're absolutely not crazy. No, they weren't necessary. But at the same time, I think the way that Abyss tells its story, part of the reason that it is so great is because it really is no holds barred. Like it does show you absolutely everything, where you like it or not. It's just a matter of, there are a few isolated scenes that don't really have impact on the narrative itself that are still there. And like, you kind of get jump scared by it, because you are like you're in this story and you're trying to learn about things, especially early on, or you're trying to learn about the characters, trying to learn about the world, what's going on, where are we going, and then like you kind of get jump scared by certain things, like the whole strung up thing in the first few episodes. It's like that literally happens. There's no dialogue when that scene happens, and it's only on the screen for like 2 or 3 seconds, but you see it and then you're like, why did they have to do that, right? Like it's like they didn't have to do that. And they kind of like allude to it in the first few episodes, but if would I look you in the eye and tell you that like that was really necessary to the story that's being told? No, it's not. But like I said, I think the density of it isn't large enough to where I would be like, oh my god, like you can't watch this. This is like just too much. That aside, the actual things that happen to the characters that are relevant to the story, right? It's still hard to watch, right? It is graphic. It's very, very graphic. And there are plenty of people that I know that can't watch graphic things like that when it's adults, let alone whenever it's, cute characters, right? Like, because that's a situation that we found ourselves in. But in some ways, not even in some ways, I think it's entirely necessary to
That's like the point.
the theme, right? The theme of the show is like kind of the disparity between that childlike innocence and the harshness of reality of the world that's been thrown into. And I do indeed think that it would be harder to tell that story if they were adults. And so, yeah, that's like pretty much that's like where I'm at with everything. And it's painful, man. It's really painful. Every time I see someone say like, no, I don't want to watch that because I heard this or this or that. First of all, like, some of it is literal misconception. But I understand why people think those ways. So I never like get mad, but I do get disappointed sometimes. I'm like, damn, man, that's really tough. That's like that's really tough that you bury yourself off in that way. Because I don't think anyone on this cast would argue that it's not worth it. It is, but at what cost, right? That's what everyone has to evaluate for themselves. So, yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah, like
That show does that to you. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. Like it's brutal. And it also has the benefit of having one of the better anime films out there as well. Like the canon follow-up to the first season. I mean, like I think I was incapacitated. I think I was incapacitated when I first saw this movie. And it is in season 2. Afterwards, it was able to carry itself in a different way because it had already done so much of the establishment and the world building and all that stuff. And so season 2 really just got to go absolutely crazy with like just telling the narrative and adding extra context to characters and whatnot. It's been an incredible ride so far. And it's one of the shows that I have intentionally not read on purpose. Like I know I could go read, but I intentionally am not, because I just kind of want that untainted experience. Like I want to experience it for the first time in this medium. And then after all is said and done, I'll probably go back and read it afterwards. But thankfully, we do have season 3, and eventually it's gonna happen. I will wait as long as it takes.
Take your time.
There's no rush. I'm not. Don't rush out. I mean, I don't think. I had worries, when season 2 dropped, because I was like, can they really be this good this many times in a row? No, they can. No, it turns out my worries were misplaced. No, you got it. I will never doubt them again. I'll never doubt them again. But when season 2 came out, I was like, bro, season 1 was like, this series has changed my life, like straight up. It means that much to me. And so like when season 2 was starting to air, I was like really emotional, because it's like, I just really don't want this experience tarnished. And thankfully, after season 2 was done, I, with confidence, was like, okay, I should have never been worried. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking. I came to my senses. So we'll be on the lookout for what comes after. But if you guys have anything more to add, I mean, I just
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it definitely is like a fascinating like case study because like you said, like I don't like Made in Abyss is like mainstream famous at this point. Like, you know, back in 2017 when it first aired, it famously won Anime of the Year at the
Yeah.
Crunchyroll Anime Awards
Mhm.
over My Hero Academia in the year where it swept pretty much every category that
Yep.
it was nominated for.
But My Hero Academia is that.
Yeah, I mean we know that. But, dude, does
Well,
like
what season was
the
it?
community as a whole know that?
True.
But
True.
yeah, so and like you know, no short work of like, you know, because like people have like promoted the show, like Giguk, who is like, you know, one of like the figureheads of like anime content on YouTube,
Mhm.
has like sung the show's praises time and time again, both like when it aired and when season 2 aired. So people know that there is good to this show.
Yeah.
However, like, you know, there's that post that you shared, like where people are getting criticized because they say that they like the show, and like that's definitely like not welcome, like because like we want
Yeah.
to share like media that we think is like extraordinary. That's like the whole point of like this whole cast, like this episode. And it's like it's one of these cases where like the things that may seem problematic to some people, like not like the frivolous stuff, but things that are actually like relevant to like the story and the narrative, like the main characters, like they have to be children, like for the story to work. Like it is literally like not like the same story if these were just adults, because there would not be like that intrigue that comes with like the childlike wonder juxtaposed with like the dark and twisted reality of the Abyss. There wouldn't be any of that because like adults would be like, yeah, the world is fucked up, but it's like and like, you know, you like it when it comes to like, you know, talking about the show, like you have to say to yourself and like think to yourself like is like does like this aspect of it, like, is that essential? And I'm like, yes, it is essential. Like either any way you look at it, like Made in Abyss would not be Made in Abyss like without the characters like being so young. I think it's like the same way with like some of the other shows that we've talked about, like previously, like Monogatari. Like, you know, it may seem like overwhelming that like the main character of that series, like Araragi, like is actually just like a horny teenager, and like the way that you see things through his eyes is like very accentuated in those aspects. Like, and people will be put off from something like that, and like, does it have to be that way? I think it does, because like it helps the storytelling. Like, because it's a very like character focused, like perspective based storytelling. Monogatari, and I think it's like the same with like Made in Abyss, where like it is from the perspective of children, and like, you know, them like realizing like the weight of their journey like across the series, and like it's, I mean, it's definitely like a great conversation to have. Like, I think like lots of good can come from the conversation, but also like a lot of bad if you're like talking to somebody who's like only looking
there's a lot
at
of
the
bad
surface
faith.
level.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you look at like a lot of series where it's like people's impressions are like Rurouni Kenshin, right? Like Rurouni Kenshin's a series that's like lauded as like one of like the greatest like samurai like shonen manga to exist, and like the main like the author, right? He was like caught with like,
that guy's heinous,
you know, CP,
bro.
right? Like it's
legit.
not good, but at the same time, like it's not as like that's an easy place to be like, oh, it's black and white. But like when you have an author like this, where it's like the implications are this guy might not have the most like, I guess, like normative like kind of opinions on how things could or should be. Like it's not like he's done anything that we know of that's bad. So it's like, okay, like where it's a really weird case, because it's like this straddles the line of like, what do we think is like okay and still worth supporting versus like what's something that we would have to regrettably like put down, right? Like, and it's weird because like this show doesn't do anything like this show and the author, like it's not hard enough evidence to be like, yeah, no, this gotta go. But like at the same time, there are traces of it where it's like, if you really think about it, maybe you gotta reconsider. Because the first time I watched this show, I had no idea of any of this, and so a lot of the like implications just kind of flew over my head. I just didn't really get it. And then there was someone else I know who was watching it, and like she went in knowing, like, having heard about this kind of stuff, and so she points out like things in the show that like I never noticed before, and I was like, I didn't even realize that like looked like a butt plug. Like
Yeah.
I just random stuff like that. I'm like, that's crazy. I like when I watched it, I didn't even notice, but like when you look for it, you know, it kind of is there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I think the conversation of because we not too long ago I remember having a conversation with a viewer, and we had a disagreement about something, and the thing we had a disagreement about was the idea that when it comes to fiction, if you're presenting anything in your if you're presenting anything in fiction that could be touted as problematic or taboo, it should only exist for the purpose of condemning it. And that was their thought. They were like, if you're gonna have things in it that could be considered problematic, you need to make like a staunch stance against those things. I don't think it's that way. Especially like because if we're talking about a fictional story, sometimes these things are just kind of a part of the themes and a part of the world and a part of and these things can exist in fictional confines and not necessarily be like, yeah, I don't know. I just never really thought about it that way. I don't think that like people that create art or fiction need to like limit themselves in that way. I think if they did, then we wouldn't have a lot of the great things that we have to this day. But at the same time, I'm not fucking stupid. I'm not gonna look you in the eye and say, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What do you that wasn't there? Like, no, you saw it just like I did. Like, obviously, we could have disagreements about whether that is okay or not, but I think this series is a direct result of like not being afraid to present those things, like even though because like you couldn't convince me that he doesn't know how people are going to feel about these characters experiencing these things. I'm talking about the things that are actually necessary to the story. Like even those, right, are like very like it's like hard to experience. And there, you couldn't tell me that he knows that. Like there's no way he doesn't know that. If he didn't know that, he'd be a complete fool and he would create this by luck, and I don't think that's possible, right? And so that's why it opens up a lot of very, very interesting conversations. And unfortunately, when you have conversations that reach a massive group of people, especially considering that despite being so popular, it obviously isn't in like a super popular genre or anything like that. So it's not something that like is going to be considered an auto watch to people. Like, oh my God, you're watching anime. Yeah. You gotta watch this. It's not one of those, right? And it's not a gateway show at all. It's not something I would recommend to anyone that hasn't watched at least a good amount of shows to really get a feel for the medium and how they tell their stories. But the more people get weaved into this conversation, like these conversation nets, the more like kind of bad faith comes. Like there'll always be people that just kind of want to be dismissive and they don't want to engage with you about these things. And I think these are things that are worth talking about, right? At the end of the day, like we can all have different perspectives on certain things, and to stifle that, I think stifles not only creativity on creators' parts, but like how we think and how we perceive certain things. Like new perspective, I think, is everything when we're talking about art. And so it's really unfortunate that it had to happen to my favorite show. Why couldn't it happen to Bobby's favorite show? It's bullshit. But no, I'm just joking.
Like we're not gonna pretend like Monogatari is like is like
I was thinking
exempt.
Gintama, but I was thinking
oh yeah.
I was thinking, but no, in all seriousness, like I'm actually pretty thankful that that it is deep enough and complicated enough to have these conversations, and just like some of the things in the show are like hard to watch or hard to even like think about the implications of in some cases. I think to that same end, sometimes it's kind of hard. Like it can be hard to have conversations with people about certain things, and this is one of them, which is why it's hard to recommend. It's like hard to, it's like really tough.
this whole conversation kind of like goes back to like, you know, a sentiment that I wanted to get across like in this whole episode, where it's like, you know, like shows that like have these caveats and stipulations behind them, and that like that make them seem inaccessible to the public eye. Like a lot of them like offer experiences that you just like won't get anywhere else, and like that is like in a lot of cases like that makes them worth the watch, just like on that virtue. But obviously like if the substance is like super good and like the execution is super good, it's like we have to like acknowledge that like this is, you know, this is a super high quality experience that only anime can deliver in the way that it does. And it's like, you know, like the sentiment that your viewer like try to get across, like it's definitely like not concrete, where it's like, oh, like you have to like condemn problematic stuff. Like, I mean, like the problematic stuff of like some of these shows like isn't even like the main focus. It's just like it's an element to it. And I think that if you like try to just like condemn like problematic stuff, then you'll like lose the focus on like the story that you're trying to tell. Like Made in Abyss like is definitely like one of those shows where it's like, oh, we don't like, obviously we don't want to like focus on like the things that are like frivolous and the things that are that would like potentially like turn off a lot of people. Like that's just like a method to storytelling. So
the best way to summarize it is like, you ever make one of those charts where you list off positives and negatives to people? So if I were to do it for this show, like one of it would be like positives, or like negatives. Like it's kind of weird. It's like it's pretty out there, right? Like it's pretty out there. But I think that would go in both columns. It's like it's bad that it's really weird, but it's also really good that it's really weird.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like,
okay, last one before, just because I thought this would be hilarious. We have to talk about K-Show real quick.
Oh, this is the collective.
Yeah, we gotta talk about K-Show.
Bonus.
What do you mean hard to recommend, bro? Just look,
bro. Okay, now this is so funny because like I feel like K-Show is one of those shows that like I would never. I don't know if I've ever recommended it to someone. Actually, I think I've recommended it to one person. No, I have. I have recommended it to one person.
Recommended to.
But it was Nep that I recommended it to, I think. Yeah.
This show clears your favorite sports anime.
But Nep explicitly asked me for ecchi stuff, so it was like, you know, that was like easier to justify.
They call me up.
And so like it is okay. This show is super weird for me because I tend to shy away from like ecchi shows in general. Like I don't. It's not really what I'm there for. If it's ecchi for the sake of like telling a story, or if it's a part of the themes, then cool, right? I'm not one that usually watches it for the sake of watching it. And so like I think the problem that you run into is that if you recommend someone that isn't explicitly looking for ecchi, they're gonna be like, bro, what? Are you recommending me porn? Like, what are you doing right now? Like, and I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do.
I swear, High School DxD season 3 goes hard in the plot, bro.
But like, for those of you that don't know what this is, Keijo is a show about they essentially fight with ass and tits. That's like what happens here. They're like trying to knock each other off like platforms and stuff.
No punches, no kicks.
Yeah, and it's a
fictional like, water sport.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's interesting because to me, like when I watched Keijo the first time, I'm pretty sure we watched it together, right? Wasn't this a show?
We didn't watch the whole thing.
I don't think we watched.
Oh yeah.
I watched this independently, but yeah, we did. We did watch most of it together.
Yeah. When I was watching it, I was thinking it's satire. Like that's the way I evaluate it, is that it's all parody of like shonen sports themes. Like that's kind of the way I took it. I know that's not the way that everyone does, but that's kind of like the way I looked at it. And I think if you're looking at it that way, that it's like kind of satire parody, it's pretty good as a parody. Honestly,
I mean, okay, so like for me, I'm a quite open-minded individual, you know. I watched this show and I was like, ass and titty, that sounds kind of funny. So like I kind of was on the boat of like, oh yeah, maybe this is like parody. But I'll be honest, the more I kept on watching, I was just kind of like, nah, bro. this ain't parody.
Yeah.
This is just a sports anime where they made the sport absurd, but the way they treat it is it's just a sport. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say other than like their premise is crazy. Their premise is crazy, but it's just what it is. It's just their sport. Like there's no agenda. They're like, there's no agenda here. It's just they had a premise that's crazy and they just ran with it.
Yeah, it's like, because it's so out there, it like feels really absurd the whole way through, but like the fidelity of things is really not bad. Like it's bad. I think the thing that struck me the most was the whole like gated booty line thing. I think that was
God.
that was one of the moments. That was like one of the moments where it's like, okay, this is insanity, bro. They're really trying to do some shit right now. This is the silliest shit I've ever watched in my life, but I'm kind of here for it, honestly. I'm just...
they went balls to the wall on that reference. I'm just like, you're actually not serious. People had to agree to make this and like make it happen, and nobody stopped them.
And it's here.
Yeah. I gotta respect how all in they were when they made this show. Like they didn't half-ass. Oh well,
Half-ass.
They did.
I didn't mean for that to be a pun, but fuck.
They blasted.
They definitely like all in on everything, and I think like for the genre it's in, like if we're talking about over the top like sports shonen shows, like I mean, it doesn't like pay, like I like the only thing that's really different here is that the sport that they're playing is like just silly, just a silly thing, right? Like it's not real, and the premise is like insane in and of itself, but it does definitely all in when it's like, okay, if we're gonna do this shit, we're gonna really do this shit. They definitely do.
Yeah, the ecchi aspects is like, you know, it's like not a trivial element to the show. It's not something you could just like take out like, oh, it doesn't belong here. They fucking like weaponize it. Like it is like
quite literally.
Like literally like not.
Like injuries?
That is the type of show that it wanted it to be.
There was like
That's
a legitimate meta.
Yeah,
That's so
like
funny.
With like actual counters. It was they really thought about it, and they decided we're gonna try and make this as sports like as possible.
they had to
It's
like
real.
hone different parts of their body to like accentuate their strengths and what they were good at. And I'm like, brother,
The boob meta versus the ass meta.
No, it was more like power versus speed versus like counter movements, but like
yes.
the fact that it was still there and like they thought about it was like,
What was more effective, the boobs or the ass in the show?
On average,
Like in the context of the sport.
probably the ass.
probably ass.
Well, that's because not everyone has the boob to do it, but the people with less boob have the more agility.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Yeah, you know, it's like the NFL combine's going on, so it's like a big, tall receiver that's like 6'4" and 240 pounds might not be really good at agility, but the guy that's like 5'10" and 170 pounds might do really well at agility drills.
Just imagine a fucking Keijo combine. That's so funny.
bro. Every time I think about this show, I think about this fucking gif. This gif is so fucking funny. But like the teacher in the chalk, bro. That's
That's crazy.
Oh
sends
my
me,
god,
bro.
got smoked, bro.
Bro, she got
Insane.
fucking
That's a real-
annihilated, bro. And some of you have probably
Absolutely
seen this
smoked.
gif without seeing the show before. It's like this is it really does go all in. I meant that when I said it, bro. Why did
They
she
do not
smoke her
realize
like
this
that?
is like there's so this scene makes so much sense within the context of the show.
Yeah.
But outside of people were like, huh?
Studio is this?
Zevik.
Fuck is that?
Zevik is like semi.
Bro, they just do lewd shit.
Yeah, and, dude, it's so Zevik is like so funny because like a lot of like very like unique individual talent has like come from this studio. So like I think the person who like directed Flip Flappers like originated from this studio. And also like I think some of the people who are like making like an original anime from Dogakoba, like the jellyfish like cancel in the night, like that's gonna happen next season. I think like the main staff, or like a lot of the main staff, originated from Zebek, and it's very funny because Zebek has a reputation. If you just like look at their stuff,
I mean,
so,
people start out in porn.
yeah. Gotta start somewhere, bro.
Yeah, I don't listen. I I don't shame people for that shit. Like, hey, do what you gotta do.
Yeah, there's been more than one occasion where like something good has like come out, and then I hear that like, oh, like this guy like originated from Zebek. I'm like, huh. why do I hear this so often? Is it because people don't want to continue making like porn for the rest of their life?
Well,
But
yeah.
I guess that's all the things we
yeah, that's it. That's the end of this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's nice that we actually get to do more talks like this instead of you know, you guys get one show every 3 months. So we'll try to be a little bit more consistent with it. If you did sit through this, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment with some shows that you think fit the bill, and it'll be nice to read and everything. But that is going to be it from us, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next cast. Goodbye.
Whatever that may be.
Peace.